spend 30 minutes answering your questions from the chat. I'm going to drop a live Q&A in my chat. You can put your questions in there, but super chats, PayPals, and Cash Apps will be getting priority. And if I see super chats come in from the other channels that are streaming from here that are questions, they're going to get priority as well. So if that fills up the 30 minutes, your question won't get answered. So if you want to make sure your question gets answered, send it in a super chat. And then we'll make sure it gets read. And once the formal debate is done, we're going to open the doors to the community for a chaos and chill panel where anyone can hop in to challenge and question the debaters if they choose to stay, because that part is optional for the debaters. Today's debate prompt: being an atheist is a rational position. And today's debaters, for the affirmative, we have the Indian Jesus, who has a channel right here on YouTube known for covering politics, hot topics, and resurrecting the second coming of common sense. Yep. And and for the negative, we have MadeByJimbob, a professional noticer with a channel also here on YouTube, found in the description, known for his philosophical breakdowns, sharp satire, debates, and hand-drawn comics. All right, debaters, you know the rules. We're going to start with the affirmative. So, Lutch, whenever you're ready to start your opening statement, I will start the timer up with your voice. And again, thank you both for being here.
All right. Well, thank you to Speakeasy, and thank you to Jimbob for this debate. I'm not nervous at all, guys. First and most importantly, we must define atheist as well as a rational position. Gordon Stein writes, if theism is a belief in God and atheism is a lack of belief in God, then there's no third position or middle ground is possible, but there are different levels to this. We can look at the Richard Dawkins scale that is split into 7 degrees of belief. First being a strong atheist, where you don't question the existence of God, but claim to not just have faith, but knowledge of God. Then 2 is de facto, where you don't know for sure, but you strongly believe, as I would imagine most of you are. 3 would be a weak theist, where you're uncertain, but you're more inclined to believe. 4 is pure agnostic. And this is the 50-50 way that most people use the word, but as we will explore, it is not the only definition of agnostic. But when you are equally, think that it's equally probable that God does exist and equally probable that God does not. 5 would be the pure, would be the weak atheist, where you don't know, but you're not, you're saying probably not. Number 6 would be the de facto atheist, where you'd say, I can't know for certain, but God is very improbable. It is only level 7, the strong atheist, where the person claims to have knowledge or even the positive belief that God does not exist. This means that only a very small minority of people that actually embody this level of disbelief, and they usually have blue hair, and you can find them screaming on libs at TikTok. I don't have any numbers on this, but I'd be willing to bet that most people who fall 3 or higher on that Dawkins scale, for better or worse, simply do not have religion or God in their head unless it's directly brought up. This is an important distinction to make, as I am an agnostic atheist. I would fall probably somewhere between the 5 and 6 on that scale, and that means I am not making any claims. I am merely unconvinced of the existence of any God or gods. Gnostic here means knowledge, theist means a theistic God, and a is a prefix that means without. Agnostic, atheist, without knowledge, without belief. It simply means I don't know, but I am unconvinced. So is that a rational position? I was going to do a deep dive on some of the philosophy that I was balls deep in when I last studied this stuff 15 years ago, but Jimbob is clearly better at that than I am and is way more familiar with the specifics of different schools of thought and all that stuff. So given he asked for this debate after I was last here talking about my religious positions, I would hope he is here for an interesting exploration of our ideas instead of getting some technical metaphysical point to hang his hat on. By rational position, I am simply claiming that it is not crazy or insane to be unconvinced of the existence of a God. I'm not making any grand metaphysical claims about the basis of reality. I'm simply saying it is not irrational for one to be unconvinced. Atheism is not a belief. It's not an ideology. It doesn't have a perspective or a worldview. It is merely the answer to one question. Do you believe in God? If the answer is anything other than yes, one is an atheist. Perhaps by the end of this debate, Jimbob will have converted me to Christianity. That would not make my current position irrational. The debate is not whether atheism is correct or incorrect. So Jimbob must either show that the millions of non-believers, both the raging libs as well as the people who just grew up without a direct religious influence and don't think about this stuff, are all insane, or he can simply provide proof of God. I, however, do not need to show that I can prove that God doesn't exist. Again, that's not what I believe. And two, I would not have accepted that debate because I know I can't do that. I don't even really want to be debating religion, as I think politics is far more relevant to everyday people. And the right wing is pushing away people who uphold conservative values just as well, if not better, than some Christians, i.e. the Skittles churches. And yet, we all get lumped in together with the militant atheist stereotype. Now, I don't even blame anyone for having those associations with the word atheist. But the fact of the matter is, I am proof that it's not the atheism that rots one's brains. It is the lack of spirituality that leads to all the feminism, woke, liberal, hedonistic ideas that all of us here hate. There are many positions that are irrational that happen to be held by a lot of atheists. And I'm sure on many of those we'll agree. But the simple fact of being unconvinced is a correlate, not a causation, and is not irrational. Perhaps it is incorrect. I remain open to this possibility. I just don't feel that the breadth of evidence I've seen must conclude an atheistic God. Let's not forget that a deistic God is entirely different category. So if we're defining God as something like the basis of truth or love or that which connects us all or the first cause, then we are having the wrong debate. I assumed we would be discussing the God of the Christian Bible, but any theistic God will do. Seems a bit obtuse or pedantic to claim that being unconvinced of that which you can only know through faith is the only rational position. I have much respect for Christians, Christianity, and Christian ethics, and I would actually like to help push these things further in society and to new people who don't already believe it. But this here is a necessary discussion, as people like Jimbob and the Crucible crew can influence far and wide, and yet are turning down fans, money, and most importantly, making the Christian nationalism of which they speak an impossibility. You need the secular conservatives on your side. Otherwise, they won't care or will get swept up in the Democratic propaganda and vote the other way. We may disagree on a truth claim here, but there is so much more on which we do agree, and that entire demographics of Americans see differently than us, and they have voting power to implement their ideas. We have the same goals, whether or not we hold a God belief. We all want to push society in the same direction. So again, the notion that being unconvinced is an irrational position does not stand. Unless you are going to twist the definitions, I am speaking as a layman person. I am unconvinced of the existence of God, and I don't think that is irrational. And I will concede my time.
All right. Thank you for that opening statement. And with that, we're going to hand the mic over to Jimbob. And Jimbob, whenever you're ready, I'll start the timer up with your voice.
All right, thanks. The question of tonight is whether the position atheism is a rational position. My opponent opened up by making ambiguous the difference between atheism and agnosticism and trying to pair them together. To be clear, atheist is a person who disbelieves. This is an active position in the existence of God or gods. An agnostic is a person who believes that nothing is known or could be known about the existence of nature of God. So they're kind of just holding a naive approach. Maybe they'll investigate it. Maybe they'll be convinced. To hold both of them together is not the topic of the debate. But either way, if you take an atheist approach or you take an agnostic approach, you have some of the same problems here. He says he's not convinced, which is a non-position. However, it's actually not a non-position. When you dig deeper, it turns out even the statement "I'm not convinced" assumes a bunch of things. It assumes that there's a person there. This guy, there's me, another guy. Can you mute yourself? You're typing.
Oh, sorry.
Convinced assumes that their persuasion is possible, and we're not just mechanical devices made of biological structures. You're assuming truth exists. You're assuming some sort of epistemic system to determine which beliefs are rational and which aren't. You're assuming rationality and reason and logic. These are all things you have to assume to even question whether something's rational or not. I would say atheism cannot even justify the term rational, what it is to be rational. In fact, if you hold an atheist position and you hold the position that you're merely a nominal biological machine, then each person has their distinct set of patterns that you would call rational in the mind, or in the brain, I should say. And so there isn't any universal called rational or non-rational. So in my opponent's opener, he didn't actually defend a position. He merely said, I'm not convinced. I could just as well say, well, based on your epistemic standard, I could say, I'm not convinced of your agnostic position, that not being convinced is a rational position. Convinced by what standard, right? What is it to convince you? Well, like I said, you're assuming a bunch of things have to be the case in order to be convinced, right? Are you holding a position that you're not just a cluster of atoms and molecules smashing together accidentally, uttering things from your mouth hole or from any other hole for that matter? Are we getting to something called truth? Is there something to get to? Is logic a thing in your worldview? I didn't hear anything. I heard a couple of non-positions, and then I heard a sort of affirmative political stance. Even if we got into the political avenue of this, an atheist position wouldn't be rational in making claims of what society should and shouldn't do. Atheism has no normative position on what we should or shouldn't do. In fact, it's all nominal. Again, it reduces to each person's individual wants and desires. And if someone wants to pursue the government and take a hold of its guns and, deploy some sort of a totalitarian regime, that would be completely consistent with atheism. So I'm not sure where he thinks he's going by appealing to traditional values. Which tradition? Traditional values. Which tradition is he referring to? Well, to be an atheist and to appeal to traditional values itself would be kind of contradictory. In order to reason, in believing in something that's worth believing in, and I'm wondering what my opponent is actually presenting as a system. Is he talking about evidence? Is he going to say, I need evidence to believe in God, and then you'll move me over? Just like being convinced, evidence itself has a whole slew of metaphysical assumptions that atheism cannot justify. So if it's the case that holding an atheistic position, which again is not what he said in his opener, the atheist position, to be clear, is a person who affirms, who holds a positive position that God doesn't exist, as opposed to an agnostic position, a person who believes that they just don't have enough information. They're not convinced about it. That's agnosticism. Atheism is a hard position, which you're defending tonight. Now, he doesn't have to actually believe in atheism. In fact, he's based on interacting with him before, I don't think he actually does hold a strong atheist position. But for the sake of the argument tonight, I would probably recommend that he either abandons it and concedes to the debate and we can move on to a different topic, or he just takes on and puts on the hat of atheism, hard atheism. You can't mingle your own personal naive approach to atheism. You have to actually take the position and argue if it's rational or not. So how do we determine what's rational is probably a good question, based on or in accordance with reason or logic. Well, if atheism can't even tell you what reason or logic is, what its ontology is, how could an atheist actually tell you what's in accordance with reason or logic? Their own worldview denies that there's a universal reality to reason and logic. In fact, each of our brains operating exactly how they're determined to is completely consistent with their worldview. We would all have our own system of what's in accordance with reason or logic, because the only arbiter for truth is our own experience, period. Whereas a theistic view or Christian view would actually make a bigger claim and say, well, the ontology of reason and logic, things like rationality, the fact that we have faculties and a will to pursue the truth and debate about it, the fact that we believe that we can be convinced of things, that further in politics, in our behaviors, that we ought to operate a certain way, or the fact that we think that human beings have some sort of value such that we could make laws derivative of that assumption that we have value. An atheist view has no justification for human value. In fact, from their worldview, they can't even really tell you what a human is independent of the other creatures. It's just a set of new molecules that are a bit more complex than the previous ones. Is that rational? No. Is it rational to say humans have rights? No, that's completely irrational from the atheist paradigm. So I'm not actually sure what my opponent's going to be defending tonight. I'm going to be attacking the position of atheism, having lackluster, nearly absent grounding foundations and justifications for the preconditions to even argue this. Reason, logic, mind, information, meaning, universals, particulars, the fact that we can evaluate things. This is not consistent with an atheist view. An atheist view cannot tell you how it is the case we can actually evaluate things and come to true beliefs or false beliefs. In fact, atheism can't even tell you why we should pursue true beliefs versus false beliefs. You know why? Because if I held a false belief, but it actually was pragmatic and it produced results, the atheist would say, well, okay, you got me there. I mean, in that case, a false belief is pretty pragmatic, so I don't have any reason why you should abandon it. So even from the atheist position, if God even was not even real, you could argue from a Christian perspective or even a general theistic perspective that the heuristic as a tool is beneficial. In fact, the atheist might even say that we evolved to believe in God. Would it be rational to say we should move away from something we evolved to do quite well? No, that would be irrational. So I'm not sure where my opponent's going to go with this. There's really no defense of atheism in this particular arena called metaphysics. They have no justification for the truth. They have no reason to pursue the truth. They have no reason to avoid lies. They have no reason to order society in a particular way. And certainly if my opponent's holding an atheistic position, he has no justification other than his cultural preferences to then abide by or try to veer society toward a more Christian traditional standpoint. Even if he rejected the beliefs, he's actually appealing to something that he's arguing tonight is irrational, but it's rational to follow the traditions because they produce better outcomes. Well, which is it? Is it rational to believe in something that doesn't actually exist if it actually produces good outcomes? Is it rational if it produces good outcomes? He might have to say yes. I haven't met an atheist that doesn't say yes to that. So I'm interested in the topic. I'm totally fine getting into the political avenue of these topics because I think it's even more in my favor that an atheist arguing for certain lines of politics over the other lines of politics makes any sense at all. In fact, atheism doesn't have any coherent binding. You can't tell someone they're being a bad atheist, in other words. Well, Christianity and in other religions, even if it was false, it would be more rational to hold to a cohesive in-group set of standards and norms so you can hold each other accountable. Atheism can't hold each other accountable for anything. I don't find that's rational, especially if you're arguing for implementing law or arguing for some type of culture that we should be a certain way or should act a certain way. So I would love to start with, how does my opponent determine something's rational, a rational belief or not? And that's it.
All right. Thank you for that opening, Jimbob. And with that, we're going to get over into the 5-minute uninterrupted rebuttals. So, Lutch, whenever you're ready, I'll start the timer up with your voice.
Yeah, so I mean, I would love to know where we're getting the definition that atheist means that you affirm that God doesn't exist. Anybody, you could look at any public atheist published otherwise. This is the common definition that, yeah, maybe colloquially people use it to say that I believe God does not exist, but that's not what the word means. So you can claim that it's something that it's not, but it's not that. It is a lack of belief, and to that point, you said, yeah, I didn't give a worldview, I didn't give a perspective, yeah, because that's not what atheism is or does. We could talk about the different philosophies that would give me a worldview and where I would base logic on those things, but that has nothing to do with atheism. This is the problem that I had with Andrew Wilson. That it was 5 atheists versus Andrew Wilson, and it came in with a bunch of political prompts. I don't know if you guys understand the difference between a leftist and an atheist. They're not the same thing. And so you correct. I did not offer anything because atheism does not have a perspective. It does not have a worldview. As I said, it is not an ideology. It doesn't have any tenets. There are other things that must be filled in to talk about that, whether spiritual, political, or otherwise. This is like saying that I don't know. I'll come up with a better analogy later. But you're exactly right. You're attributing. You're trying to smuggle in a lot of things that, as I said in my opening, that a lot of atheists do hold these bad beliefs. Atheists do, follow irrational lines of thinking and all of that stuff. But that's not what atheism is. That's what atheists are doing. And so the being unconvinced, that is the end and the beginning. That is all. That is the whole thing. There's nothing else to it. I am unconvinced. So if that must be an irrational statement in order for you to win this debate. Yeah, that's the point. Atheism has no worldview. All these things that you say, the atheist perspective, the secular worldview, those are things other than the secularity, other than the atheism. And you can, I can see my time.
All right, thank you for that rebuttal. And we're going to hand the mic over back to Jimbob. And whenever you're ready for your rebuttal, Jimbob, I'll start the timer up with your voice.
Okay. Well, it sounded like he's making no distinction between agnosticism and atheism, which is just false. He didn't give an actual definition. He just said atheism is the lack of belief in God. It's not necessarily being not convinced by it. It's just that you're holding a firm belief on what constitutes a strong belief and a weak belief. That itself assumes an epistemic system. Okay. Even if I granted what you just said twice, which is atheism has no worldview, it has no tenets, it doesn't provide anything, I would argue that definition, if that was true, which I'll grant it, that's irrational. A view that has no worldview, no tenets, nothing, doesn't provide anything. How could it be rational? You basically concede the debate if I just grant you your own definition of atheism, that it does nothing. There's nothing that it offers. Now, for him to say there's no difference between agnosticism and atheism, a whole slew of other atheists and agnostics would completely disagree with you. Look up the definitions. If agnostic and atheist are interchangeable, why are there two different words for them, first of all? Second of all, to hold a non-belief in God is to hold a system of epistemology. There's a reason you came to the non-belief in God. So to say atheism is simply a vacuumed position about God and nothing more, that's a lie. What is the case is if you're an atheist, you come to a specific position about God's existence, even if it's a non-convinced position. But to come to that position means you have an epistemic system that you use to come to that position, right? So if you used an epistemic system, in this case, you're the atheist. If you want to particularize it and say each atheist is different, fine. We're talking about you, the atheist, tonight. If you come to the position that you're unconvinced, I'm going to ask you what the system that you're using to become unconvinced by God, and I'm going to question that system and see if that's rational.
All right. Ed, you didn't want to use the rest of the time there?
What else is there? I mean, just look up the definitions. Can you give me a definition between atheism and agnostic and it says the same exact thing? Because that's what you're arguing. I would just reject that. But even if I allowed you to smash the two words together for the sake of the debate, what you just said is before that is atheism has no worldview. It has no tenets. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't provide anything. Okay, well, if I could demonstrate that a position that offers nothing, has no worldview on anything, is it rational to operate in a world that's completely inconsistent with not having a worldview? No, it's irrational to be an atheist. If what an atheist means is to have no worldview, if by my own opponent's standards, it means to not have a worldview, how is it rational to operate in the world and operate in politics and argue for things if by your own standard you said atheism has no worldview, no tenets, doesn't believe in anything, it doesn't provide anything? Why would an atheist be rational to say, let's say, human rights exist? That would be irrational from an atheist position, right? Well, sorry, if you want to talk about politics and atheism, You have no standard as an atheist to argue we should do this, should do that, because that would then change your view into something more than what you're saying atheism is. Now, the problem with your view is you're going to have to assume these bigger metaphysical things without the belief in God. What I'm saying is you can't do that. You can't even tell me why we should value other humans in society before we get into your political remedies, right? You can't even tell me what's distinct about a human being from the other beasts. That's an atheist entailment. The entailment of atheism is, well, nihilism, not just epistemic, but teleological nihilism. Atheism has no teleology. Now, even by your own standard, that you would say a dysteleological view as a human being would be irrational as soon as you start participating with other humans, because you're arguing that there's no purpose for anything. And at the same time, you're saying we should get this stuff done. We should do this. We should organize society. We should protect these people. We should stop war. All of those statements under an atheist view are irrational and inconsistent with the atheist view of nihilism.
All right. Thank you for that rebuttal. And with that, we're going to get over into the hour of open back and forth. Real quick reminder for the chat. You can find both debaters in the description of this live stream. So make sure you go show both the debaters love. They're both streaming right now, too. So go send them both money. Show them love for coming and giving you some entertainment tonight. And also the Q&A. There is a Q&A in the chat, but the super chats will get priority during the Q&A at the end. So if you want to make sure you have a question that you really want to get read, send it through super chat. And with that, we're going to get into the open floor. Whoever wants to start it off, I'll start the timer with your voice. And thank you for both being here.
I just want to clarify with the atheist agnostic thing. Are you holding that there's no distinction between atheist and agnostic or not?
No, I'm glad that you asked, so that wasn't a purposeful straw man, but actually double straw man me. So no, I didn't say that they are interchangeable. That is why I am an agnostic atheist, because they are different words. I do not know means is the agnostic part, and I am not convinced is the atheist part. Then when I said there is no world
right there. Hold on.
Can I finish?
Right. No. 1 second. Definitions first. Yeah, definitions first. If there's a distinction between atheist and agnostic, but you're saying you're an agnostic atheist, I'm not sure what you're saying when you say that.
Because they're not mutually exclusive. I don't know. I'm not convinced. Which part of that do you not understand? Agnostic. Which God do I believe in?
Why would you add?
Which God do I believe in?
Look, why would you add?
Which God do I believe in?
I'm asking. Stop interrupting. Why would you add?
You just did it to me.
Why would you add the atheist part if you could just say you're agnostic?
Because it's more accurate.
How does it add anything? Tell me what it adds.
Because you can be agnostic on a whole bunch of stuff, bro. Do you know how many rooms are in my condo? So you're agnostic on how many rooms are in my condo. That has nothing to do with God or anything. So I am not a strong atheist, so I'm being more specific in the sense that I'm an agnostic atheist.
If you said I'm agnostic...
that was the first straw man. The second straw man was that you said, I have no worldview. That is not at all what I said.
You said
I said atheism has no worldview.
Are you defending atheism?
Yes, but the atheism
That's what we're talking about, dude.
Okay, but that it doesn't. So being
we're not talking about you, bro. We're talking about atheism.
Okay, so then being
does the title say agnostic atheism? What is the title of the debate?
It doesn't matter.
Yes, it does.
No, I'm saying even if you want to go with straight.
What is the title of the debate?
It's not irrational. Being
what is
an
the
atheist
title of the
is
debate?
a rational position.
Does it say agnostic atheism?
No.
Okay, you think I would have pushed back if you said agnostic atheism? Yes, I would have. You said you were talking about atheism. So
okay, great. There's different kinds of atheism.
Great. If atheism is a different word than agnostic, and you have to actually assume that, given that you're using both the words, what I'm asking is, well, the topic of the debate is atheism. Is atheism itself, right? Not agnosticism. I would have pushed back on that if you said agnostic atheism, but the title said atheism. Okay. Now I hold that atheism is a pretty firm position on the non-existence of God. It's basically, I don't believe in God. It's not, I'm unconvinced. It's no, I actually firmly hold that it's a completely an insane position and there's no way around it. Agnostic is, oh, there could be a way around it. Maybe I just haven't heard it. I wasn't convinced yet. That's agnostic. So the audience and myself are not How could it be a straw man? I'm
Because
literally
I will tell
defining
you.
words.
I will tell you. Because that's like saying, well, if you're conservative, then you must be a MAGA loving, Trump dick sucking.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is. There's different
I'll
types
tell
of
you how.
conservatives. You're
I'll
saying
tell you.
that because you are conservative, that some conservatives are like that. That being conservative means that you must be that. Just because some atheists are militant and believe that no God exists doesn't mean that that's the entirety of the definition. You're going to try to push it into this corner.
Bring up your definition
but
of atheism.
So that's exactly why.
Bring up your definition of atheism. Any definition. Bring it up. Google it right now.
I gave you that definition.
No. I don't want a proprietary. I want a researched position, a definition of atheism right now from you.
All right. Okay.
Look up any definition of atheism, and then look up the word agnosticism and the difference between atheism. Is there a difference between atheism and being agnostic? You tell me.
Richard Dawkins defined atheism is the belief that there are no God, which is more than just the lack of belief in God. Okay, so he is further on his own scale, but again, he gave the scale of the 7 different parts, and you can be a de facto atheist, you could be a weak atheist, you could be a strong atheist. So again,
is there a difference? Now bring up agnosticism, and if it's different than atheism.
It is. I was the one who said it. You were the one who conflated that they were the same thing.
What are you defending tonight?
Atheism.
Are you defending
is agnostic atheism? Not atheism.
Are you defending agnostic?
We could just ask each. So agnostic atheism is not atheism.
No, agnosticism is just agnostic, right? That's its own word. You don't need the word atheism.
All right. You know what? Fine. Let's. I'll give you that. You're
defending a firm belief that God doesn't exist.
No, I'm not. But since
then you don't know what you're debating tonight.
I definitely know what I'm debating. You don't know what you're debating. But since you don't know, we'll go to where you can understand things.
Cool. Is the disbelief? Let's just say, for the sake of argument, because it's not you, right? I'm not actually pinning this on you as a belief. I'm asking you to step in to the atheist paradigm.
Sure.
For the sake of argument. Can you hold for a second? Let's start with the hardest then. If you're going to sell me a scale gradient, then it's fair that we start with the most strictest form of atheism.
So you admit that there's a scale?
No, I'm granting you. I don't think there's a scale. I'm granting you
so Richard Dawkins just
no. I'm not. I don't care about Richard Dawkins, dude. So I don't care. So if it's the case that someone holds a very strict position of atheism, that is to say, they affirm the position God does not exist. Not I'm unconvinced. God does not exist, right? Okay, is that an atheist?
So fine. Yes, that is an atheist.
Okay.
But
is
fine.
that rational?
I will grant you that.
Is that a rational position?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me how it's a rational position for someone, why you think it's a rational position for someone to say God does not exist. Certainly they'd be coming to that conclusion using some system, right?
Sure.
Okay. And like I said in my opener, rational means based on or in accordance with reason or logic, right? Mm-hmm. So you tell me how the hardest, firmest atheist comes to the position that no God exists and how it's in accordance with reason and logic.
So I mean, even just the basic notion of like day one atheism. Well, how come God lets if God existed, bad things wouldn't happen? That is that's
rational.
Yeah, that's a rational.
Okay,
position.
Let's start with that. So if God exists, bad things wouldn't happen. Is there an absolute standard for what constitutes a bad thing, or is that an opinion?
It depends on your worldview, but are you asking under my worldview or are you asking under your worldview?
Is it a bad thing that I have to eat to live?
No.
Oh, really? I think it is.
Okay.
So I'm reasonable to believe God doesn't exist merely because I have to eat and breathe oxygen to live. Is that rational?
If you think that's bad, then yeah, you'd be wrong.
So that's no. Is that rational?
Yes.
To come to the conclusion, God doesn't exist because I have to eat and breathe air.
Mm-hmm.
That's rational.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you conclude that God doesn't exist from the fact that I have to eat? If it's rational. How do you conclude?
I didn't say that is. You're trying to make a jump. You just said, is that a logical point? Fine,
is it rational?
Point. I didn't say not wanting to eat is enough to justify a belief in or non-belief in God.
Listen, rational means based in accordance with reason and logic. You said not the best, but you started with this. Bad thing happened. I asked you what constitutes a bad thing. Could it be anything? Hold on. You said bad thing happened. Okay, the meme. And so I said, oh, interesting. I define it as a bad thing that I have to breathe air and eat, and I can't swim underwater forever. I think that is a good enough reason to say God doesn't exist. Why? Because if God existed, I would be able to do everything I wanted, right? And to you, that's a rational conclusion, right?
Sure. What's
okay? If it's a rational conclusion, give me the premises that make that conclusion follow.
I don't know. I don't hold that belief, but you
just said it's rational. I didn't ask if you held the belief. I said, is it rational in accordance with logic and reasoning? If it's in accordance with logic and reasoning, then it would need to be the case that you could present an argument where that conclusion followed.
If God existed, bad things wouldn't happen. Bad thing happened, therefore God doesn't exist.
And that follows.
Yeah.
Right. That's affirming the consequent. You know that's a logical fallacy, right?
Don't know what that means.
Okay. Well, if it's affirming the consequent and it's a logical fallacy, are logical fallacies in accordance with reason and logic?
Nope.
Okay. Well, then it's not rational. Do you concede that part?
No. I mean, could you explain what that is?
You don't concede that.
Okay. I just said I don't know what it is. If you explain it, rains, like, oh, okay, then you're right.
If it rains out, it's wet outside. It's wet outside. It rained. Is that logical to you?
Sure.
That's logical to you?
Oh, you mean no? Meaning if it's wet outside, it must have rained?
Yeah.
Is that the question? Okay, misunderstood. No, obviously.
So that's irrational, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's called affirming the consequent. If you agree affirming the consequent is a logical fallacy, then the bad thing happen is irrational, right? Because you don't know. Yeah. What do you mean? How so? You said
it's wrong.
If God,
I don't think it's irrational.
What do you mean? Anything could be a bad thing. Do you understand that? Anything that someone doesn't like. For instance, the guy accidentally put pineapple on my pizza. Therefore, God doesn't exist. That's rational to you, right?
Say that again. What?
If I order pizza and I didn't order pineapple, but it shows up with pineapple, I could say, from your worldview that you're defending, I could say that's enough to say God doesn't exist because I don't like pineapple. Why did that happen? Right?
So pedantic. Okay, so I was trying to just go with this. I thought we would, but okay. Let's say children have leukemia. Again, I thought you weren't going to go, but whatever. So kids have leukemia, therefore God doesn't exist because God wouldn't let that happen.
Okay, and how did you determine God wouldn't let that happen?
Because I was taught that God was through the church that God was all good.
Well, no. If God's nature is all good, why would it follow he has to stop things that you don't like?
Because what do you? I don't.
It sounds like you're God. It sounds like if God was real, I'd be God, right? It'd be like if God was real, everything that happened in reality would be in accordance with my preferences. That's what you're really arguing.
No.
Yeah, you are. I just gave you the same category of a problem, which is with pizza, just to trivialize it. If anything, I don't like that.
You brought up
You're interrupting me. You're interrupting me.
You've been rambling, bro. I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
I'm not
rambling. Just let him finish. Just let him finish. Yeah.
So, if I don't like leukemia in kids, by the way, who cares? Kids or adults? Why is it worse because it's kids? Why? I mean, that's just like you're like special pleading for kids. What if there was leukemia for crabs? Would it be bad? God doesn't exist? Leukemia for crabs is God doesn't exist from that too? Or
sure.
Yeah. So leukemia for cockroaches, God doesn't exist?
No, I'm being obviously.
What do you mean no? What do you mean? Be consistent. Leukemia, cockroach leukemia. Why does it not follow that God doesn't exist? Cockroach leukemia. Why?
Because we don't care about humans in the same way, or cockroaches in the same way we do as humans. Again, we're coming back to the notion of being wrong versus being irrational. You are bringing up these very obvious examples that are wrong, and trying to say that my belief is irrational based on the wrongness of your belief.
Okay, so if you just stated, which I put in my opener, if there's a distinction from an atheistic view between a crab and a human, can you tell me the symmetry breaker between any other animal and humans from an atheistic view?
What do you mean by the atheistic view?
Are you defending an atheistic view, a godless view tonight?
No,
You're not.
Defending a philosophical position that God does not exist. So
That's the same thing, dude. So if you're defending a philosophical position that God doesn't exist, from your godless philosophical position, can you tell me why humans have value but other creatures don't have the same value as humans?
Because I feel like it. What are you getting at? What are you getting
That's rational to you, right?
What are you getting at?
I'm getting at you don't have a justification for your value judgment. You just said I feel like it. Is that rational?
No, I'm coming from this.
It's not rational.
Point. This is my point. You're trying to pin down all of the things that an atheist believes to atheism. All of these things are outside of atheism.
What are you talking about? I just asked you if you hold an atheist view and you draw values.
Oh yeah, that's right. We got to stay in the corner of the only where Jimbob gets to win.
No. I
forgot we were ignoring all the other definitions of atheism.
Okay.
My bad.
Look, I started with the strongest one, right? Would you argue that an atheist might say they don't believe in God because there's no evidence?
I don't believe in God because there's no evidence. Yeah.
Would you hold that position or?
Yeah.
Okay. And you think that's rational, right?
Yes.
Okay. And do you believe in human rights?
Sure.
And is there any physical, empirical evidence for human rights?
Physical evidence for human rights? No, they're concepts. They're not tangible things.
Oh, they're concepts. So it's totally rational to believe in imaginary concepts called rights, even though they're intangible and you can't see them or measure them. Hold on. But it's irrational to believe in an immaterial mind that ground all things. Can you tell me why belief in rights based on...
I didn't say that.
Dude, I'm asking you a question.
Yeah, but you're asking me a question about something that I didn't say.
Can you tell me why it's rational to believe in something non-existent like human rights, but it's irrational?
They are existent. They're just not tangible.
Where are they? How do they exist?
Do you know what tangible means?
Yes. Where do they exist?
They are ideas. They are concepts. They don't.
So is God.
You can't touch something. Okay, great. There's not all things that are not tangible. Like, you are making the weirdest conflations here.
It's rational.
Oh, well, you can't touch this thing, and you can't touch God. Therefore, they both exist, or they neither exist. What are you talking about?
I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about. The audience can follow this. You're the only one not following this. What I'm drawing out is. I'm asking you your criterion for determining whether something's rational to believe in or not. And I asked, would you say it's rational
to do with the prompt?
Let me talk, dude. Is it rational, I asked, to say God doesn't exist because you don't see any evidence? You said, yes, that's rational. I said, do you believe in human rights? You said, yes. I said, oh, you do believe in something without evidence, physical evidence. Okay. So you believe in the concept of rights and you think it's rational to believe in the concept of rights, right?
Yes.
Okay, so can you tell me why do you think it's rational to believe in the concept of rights, but it's irrational to believe in God because of the lacking of evidence?
Because
if they both lack evidence,
it doesn't lack evidence. We can see that people get arrested for this, that, and the
other.
No,
that's force.
Okay, force is the manifestation of those rights.
No.
Then why is there force there then?
You can use force.
Why is there force there then?
I'm telling you the distinction. You could use force without rights, right?
Sure.
Okay, so force is force. You're saying, well, no, there's proof of rights because there's force. I can point to places where they use force and there's no rights. So you can't point to force.
That has nothing to do with what I said.
I just asked you the evidence
specific.
Oh my God!
You're asking about how do we know that rights exist, and I
asked for evidence.
Force, the evidence that the rights exist is the force that is used to back them up. Just because force exists outside of rights doesn't mean rights aren't a thing.
Tell me, okay. There's two places.
You disagree?
No, yeah, I disagree. Okay. There's two places that use force. One doesn't believe in rights, and one does. They both just use force for the same exact things. Okay. Tell me how you determine one place has rights and the other doesn't.
The government, the society, the culture.
That doesn't tell me anything. How do you verify? Yes,
what do you mean? Exist? You don't know the different. You don't know that in the UK that there's no right to free speech or right to the Second Amendment.
That's just force.
Why?
Okay.
Okay. That's not what I asked you.
Well, look, I'm asking. Dude, I didn't ask for evidence that force exists. I agree force exists because
I know that. I am telling you.
Dude, stop interrupting me.
Oh my God. You just go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Put your mic away. Thank you. Thank you.
Hold on. hold up. This is gonna. So I'm
Go off the
hearing
rails?
what Jim Bob's asking you. He's asking you, right? Is if the concept of rights is a rational belief, why is the concept of God not a rational belief?
It's
Does
an
that make
interesting
it easier
conversation.
for you to understand what he's saying?
So is that what you're asking? Why is one belief rational and the other is not?
You said it's rational to deny God's existence because of the lack of evidence, and I asked you, why do you affirm rights if there's no physical evidence for rights?
And again, I disagree with the notion that I think that the force we see and the processes that we see are the evidence that those rights exist. When those rights are infringed upon, then we see the force being implemented to address that. That doesn't mean that all force must be connected to rights.
Okay, so again, you're pointing to men with guns doing things. Okay, right? You're saying men with guns doing stuff is proof that rights, the concept, exists. And I go, where? They're just men with guns doing stuff. So if there's two societies, and they're both doing the same exact thing, men with guns doing stuff, you haven't told me how one.
Okay, can I ask you a question that maybe will help me answer?
You just interrupt right before I ask you a question.
I'm honestly trying to get this on the rails. If I ask you a question, you can answer and then show me how that applies to what I'm saying. Is that fair?
Is it fair for you to not answer my question and ask me one?
I'm trying to answer your question based on my understanding. I get it. You're a smart guy. You know this stuff better.
What do you think my question is?
I don't know yet. That's why I'm trying to ask you.
Maybe I can help build this. I have a different way. Maybe I can help build this. Indian Jesus, do the Crusades give you physical evidence that God exists?
No.
What? Okay.
So this is what he's comparing it. Right?
Okay.
The force of the Crusades doesn't mean that God exists, just like the force of the law doesn't mean that rights exist. That's what he's trying to build here for you.
Yeah. Would you say that doesn't
follow that?
Yeah, it does. It follows the same.
How is we're seeing a direct effect? We're seeing a direct effect.
Yeah, the Crusades are a direct effect
of what?
Belief in God.
Oh my God.
Are the Crusades a direct effect of the belief in God?
Yeah, but it's not the only. I'm talking about a one-to-one, a direct causal factor. There was other cultural factors. There were other things, just like I said with the rights. But in this case, we have a metaphysical, supernatural, whatever you want to call it, claim that is built in.
Are rights metaphysical?
Yeah.
So they're not material, right?
No.
Okay. On what basis should an atheist believe rights exist?
Depends on what their political philosophy is.
Are you an atheist tonight?
Yep.
On what basis should you hold that rights exist by your own epistemic system?
Utilitarianism.
No. Rights themselves, like, do they have an actual ontology or are they illusory?
I'd probably say they're illusory. I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but...
Okay, illusory meaning they don't actually exist, just the concept that's acted on exists.
Yeah,
Okay, so if you just believe that rights don't actually exist and they're illusory, but the actions on the illusory concept, those actions do exist, I agree with you, but you're still holding to an atheistic position, right? Is atheism rational? What I'm trying to draw out is you're saying it's rational to deny God's existence because of its immateriality and an illusory nature. I'm saying your belief in rights should be just as irrational by the same token.
Okay, so then if you're going to make the comparison to rights, can you then prove? Are you saying that rights don't exist, or you're saying rights do exist?
I'm saying rights don't exist. And the only concept we have of rights would be tied to a Christian paradigm anyway, which would be more aligned with like an entitled position based on your duties. Like even biblically, the term rights really points to the status of man in the world. For instance, we are stewards of the land and animals, right? From that position, I would colloquially grant the term rights, but I wouldn't use it in the Enlightenment way. I wouldn't say you just have an entitlement, which is another problem with atheism, which is most atheists actually appeal to rights. They're always whining about rights.
Yeah, but that's leftism. That's not atheism.
I understand, but they're mostly atheists, though. So
okay, but it's that again.
I'm saying there's a
okay,
correlation.
fine, but we're getting away from the rationality part of that.
Okay.
Again,
how does atheism, let's go to that. Rationality. How does atheism account for rationality itself?
It doesn't. It's not that it doesn't claim to.
Yeah, I know. So atheism doesn't have
That's like saying how does being a dog owner account for the basis of reality?
Listen.
I've been listening, bro. Jesus
You're not
Christ.
listening. You're not listening. Okay. If atheism, by your own admission, doesn't account for rationality, how is it you can hold a position about God's existence being rational or not if you don't even know what it means to be? You can't even account for rationality. What is rationality under an atheist view? What is it?
Again, I don't know what you mean by an atheist view. I'm taking on your definition of this must be a affirmative belief, but I don't buy into that. I don't believe that is. I don't know what that is.
Let me help you. If rationality,
leftist or whatever.
If rational means in accordance with reason and logic, do you agree with that definition?
I'm sorry, I was reading the super chat. Could you say that again, please?
Rational meaning based on or in accordance with reason and logic. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So if an atheist says, I agree with reason and logic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, under a non-God view, isn't it fair for someone to ask, how does atheism account for reason and logic?
I guess it would be a fair question, but I mean, again, depending on the other aspects of your belief system, it would be a different answer. So I can give you my answer for me, but I can't tell you what another random strong atheist is going to think.
Okay,
you're trying again. I'm giving you all this grace by moving this into the tiny little corner so that you can have your debate because you're unwilling to have a real conversation. But really? I can't answer what every other atheist thinks.
I didn't ask
that. Again, this comes back to the same thing of you not understanding that all these things you're talking about leftism, you're talking about wokeism, you're talking about feminism, you're talking about hedonism, you're talking about all these things. Wokeism. But that's what I know you didn't say anything about them because you're calling it atheism. You're calling it atheism. All these bad things. All you're saying.
I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything about bad things. I'm not
saying that you said those words. I'm saying what you are talking about. Not really, because I remember that it doesn't have to do with the prompt.
It does. If the prompt is atheism rational, you said it's fair to ask, well, under the view that you're holding, in this case, you are the atheist, you, Indian, I want to know from you how your particular atheistic view, which is to say, I'm not sure about God's existence, how do you account for reason and logic? What is it under your paradigm? What is it?
So I mean, it depends on, we start with Cartesian logic and build from there.
No. I didn't ask what you start with. What is the ontology of reason and logic? Like, what do you think it's mechanical? Do you think it's like,
I don't know.
You think
I'm agnostic.
Oh, you're agnostic. So do you think that you're a biological machine strictly, or do you hold a spiritual belief?
Yeah.
You do hold a spiritual belief.
Yeah, I don't know how to define it, but yeah, sure. I believe there's something.
Okay. Do you think it's irrational to deny a spiritual aspect of your existence?
Do I think it's irrational to deny? Yeah. That's probably okay. Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. Would you agree that there is a hardline atheist position that even if you're not holding tonight, there is a hardline atheist position that would deny anything like spiritual, because that would be supernatural, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's specifically why my whole opening was about not that tiny piece of atheism, because I agree that is not my belief, and that also is not rational.
Okay, then what separates you from the hardline atheists on the threshold? Then how do you know you're at a 6 or 7 or a 4 or a 10 or whatever? How do you know that?
Because I am, as you saw from the last time I was here, I am open to the existence of God, the ethics of God. I don't have, I went through a militant atheist phase when, I was young and stuff. But, you grow up and you learn that, secular humanism doesn't work. And unfortunately, Christianity is the best we have. And so.
Okay, that's fair enough. So if you yourself instead of tearing apart the hardline atheists, which that's sounds like that's easy enough for both of us to do, and you hold a spiritual position, you're going to separate yourself from all the atheists who think you're crazy for holding an experiential conclusion of spirituality. Right?
Now you're getting it. I'm not like them. I'm the
okay. Yeah, I understand, but you did agree to the atheist, but I'm fine moving off of that because it doesn't sound like you don't even defend that view in your life.
No, I don't. That's what I said in my opening. Okay. And then you decided for the last 30 minutes that we need to stay on this specific type of hardline atheism because that's the only type of atheist that you want to talk about, even though other types of atheists exist, but you want to address that.
Okay, that's fine. No, I'm fine moving away as long as we knocked out that. What did we knock out the 10 out of 10 and the 9 out of 10 atheists, or did we go to 8? Are you at 7? Are you at 6? Where are you?
Out of the 7, I'm probably a 5.
Okay, 5. So you're not even you're moving away.
Yeah.
Do you think it's rational to move away from atheism?
Yeah, I mean, depending on the type of atheism and depending on the reality of. Depending on reality, yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, we agree. It's
like I said, you might convert me by the end of this debate. I am totally open.
Well, I did.
No, you just knocked down the atheist that I'm not.
I don't put too much weight on these, but I did 2 weeks ago have an image of you visiting Divine Liturgy. I'm just saying, I just thought of it. And I was like, whoa, that guy. Because I was really aggressive with you on a panel, but I actually was like, I like that guy. I think he's actually seeking for something, and he's laughing at these other materialists, so he understands.
Yes.
So I'm glad you're moving away from atheism. Okay. So if you're moving away from atheism, and I agree that's rational, at least we could agree there's some threshold, even if it's ambiguous, where atheism is irrational. But you're also saying a movement away from atheism seems to be rational.
Yeah.
So if a movement away from
maybe
atheism,
the truth is somewhere, between I believe in God and I believe there's no God, like an agnostic atheist would think.
I wonder though if that's a true dichotomy, because what could you call in the middle? Because I hold a different view. If you believe
in the middle of what,
like truth being in the middle, what I mean by that is if you hold a hard atheist view, you actually believe that truth is like in flux and that it's kind of built up from humans from the bottom up.
Well, again, that's a different philosophy that a lot of atheists may hold.
I understand, but generally speaking, I've doing this for years, and they hold to. I actually believe a true dichotomy. I believe that there's only 2 options: either epistemology, knowledge itself, is theonomous, which is to say it has always existed, and you and I, through processes, through experience and logic and reasoning, are discovering it, versus autonomous, which is that we're fabricating it. We're just making up the story about truth, and we're filling in the gap of time called our life, trying to pretend we're arguing for something, but really we're under the impression that it's not actually real. I hold that it's actually real. And so if you agree with me that we're discovering truth, this is one step forward to God existing. Because if you're discovering truth, is it fair to say if you discover something, it means it existed in a way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So
this is why, if I may, this is why I am not, I put in the thing with my opening about a deistic God, about the first cause, or the truth that connects us all, or that is a different thing than Yahweh of the Bible, and that may very well exist. I don't think that we as humanity, or me personally, have access to that right now, but I don't think that it's impossible that we could one day discover, there is something.
Okay, cool. But if there was a God, and it was a being God, a personal God, it would make sense that God would reveal truth to us. Because in the same sense, an atheist would say, well, if God exists, this bad thing wouldn't happen. You would say, well, if God exists, certainly it wouldn't be unreasonable, let's say, for him to not make it known. Wouldn't that be fair? Like, make himself known? if God
Yeah,
existed. We
yeah,
could certainly expect him to.
yeah, that's
we
a
wouldn't-
very core part of my
Okay.
atheism. Is I believe in divine hiddenness, and I think that if there is a God, that he would show himself to people. So the fact that someone like myself, who was born in the Catholic Church, confirmed in the Methodist Church, was a full believer until I actually sat down and read the Bible and learned about other types of philosophy, then after my militant atheist phase, I genuinely and still to this day tried to come back to what is the truth, regardless of what I believe right now or yesterday or any other thing. So
did you pursue orthodoxy at all, or you just went with Catholicism and that other thing?
Yeah, just Catholicism, and then.
Is there any reason you're obviously around and you're drawn to Orthodox spaces, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. I'm attracted to the political message that you guys are putting out, and that's why I think that even though there's no way that anybody's going to see that I win this debate, but I think it's an important discussion because I think that you guys are shooting yourselves in the foot, and instead of just lumping in the leftists with the and all that with atheists, that there can be a better way forward where the cool atheist, the good atheist, the based atheist, whatever the fuck you want to call it, can be part of the club, and we are going to have a much better time speaking to people who are center left than you guys are.
I'm saying ultimately that goal from your position, I'm going to go ahead and challenge you. If you think that's a good thing, I'm going to say you don't have a fully exhaustive worldview to say why that's a good thing, right?
To say what's a good thing that
we should sort of like compromise and pull even center people who are a little more reasonable than the blue hairs into our umbrella and say we're moving toward this, right? From my position, you have to be pretty strong with the position. You have to say it's orthodoxy or nothing. And so what I'd like to hold people to is like, if you have this concept of conservatism, but you have a very weak, let's say, foundation for like lower C Christianity, the reason that I would say that you didn't adopt into the other forms of Christianity that you pursued is because they end up being too weak for you. Weak stances.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Right. Right. So if you agree with that,
so then let's take that then. So let's say, especially the Methodist Church, because number one, I was younger when I was in the Catholic Church, and I was in like 8th grade, and then we moved over to a Methodist church, and that was ironically, even though there was a weaker church, I got way more into things because it wasn't about, it was just about come and hang out and stuff. And so let's say that I grew up in that Methodist church. And the whole time I had all of these doubts about God, and they're just like keep coming back. And at that point, I just was going involved, and I just was not convinced. How then would that be?
Why? Because you're like me. Well, no, it's not. No, that was rational.
That wouldn't be. That would be rational.
Yeah, it was rational for you.
There we go. Thank you.
No, yeah, no, but that's actually, we are the first to say all of those heterodox places, we call them atheist factories. We would grant that to you.
Okay, but again, so then those people would be atheists and they would have a rational position. So it can't be the case that being an atheist is an irrational position.
No. It's rational for particular instances for people who look at, let's say, heterodox Protestantism and all the rest.
I think that's the debate, homie. I think that's the debate, homie.
No, it's not. To say that some atheist on a particular position instance can
be rational doesn't mean that it's...
No. I didn't say atheists can't be rational. I said the position itself. For instance, there's a problem here. If an atheist pursues Christianity, for instance, the atheist godless position doesn't actually have a reason to pursue what they're investigating. That's not rational.
Okay. Agreed.
So if an atheist comes along and they go, well, I have a spiritual reality to myself, and I want to figure out what the proper paradigm for this spiritual experience is, because I reject materialism. I reject that I'm just a cog in a machine. I reject that there's no purpose to this. That's not consistent with my experience. They want to find something, right? I'm saying holding an atheistic position doesn't give you any reason why you should pursue that inclination at all. It doesn't give you a reason for it. It's distinctly illogical.
Right. But from that point, I agree with you that atheism doesn't give that to you. But the point that I think you're missing is that you can be an atheist, and even though the atheism doesn't give that to you, you can buy into other philosophies that would.
Not atheism. Like I said,
How are those
well, no, a movement.
Not all philosophies are based on God.
I understand, but a movement away from atheism would be the start. So we both are in alignment.
That's not what I'm
here.
asking you. That's not what. No. That's not.
No. This is what you're saying. You're saying this is what I'm saying. If someone's an atheist, they have no reason to pursue the truth.
You cannot make that statement. You don't know what other
Tell
beliefs
me any.
I don't.
This
is what I'm telling you, brother. The atheism doesn't. This is like saying the dog owner's perspective on tax evasion. What's the dog owner's perspective on tax evasion?
No. That's an opinion. We're not talking about opinions. We're talking about a standard for truth, right? So look, I'll make it simple for you.
The analogy I'm making is that you're making the same mistake there. The reason why it doesn't make sense, that question doesn't make sense, is the same reason why your question here doesn't make sense.
Is the truth of the matter opinion based or is it objective?
It's objective.
Okay. If the atheist, I don't care who you are, you or any other atheist, what I'm saying is that the worldview without a God cannot justify truth itself. They have no absolute standard for truth. Is it rational for someone who has no absolute standard for truth to pursue truth?
Probably not, but again, I disagree with the notion that because you are an atheist, you can't have a basis for truth.
Good. Give me a counterexample of how you would determine that, because you can't.
I mean, again, off the top of my head, I don't know. But are you claiming there's wait? Are you claiming there's no schools of thought that do not include a God?
No, you cannot ground absolute truth because of the nature. Let me answer.
I know you believe that. The question is, are there any philosophies that exist?
I'll tell you.
Because I can't name it off the top of my head.
I'm trying to answer you. It's a disjunctive syllogism. You can't, there's no other non-God views, right? There's no non-God view that can ground absolute truth because of what the nature of truth actually is. You and I agree, right, that truth would be at least conceptual in this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not found in nature. It's not, you can't pick it up in the wilderness, right? There's no object called truth you can hold, right? Pick it up, weigh it, right?
No, so that was in accordance with reality.
Right, but is it absolute and universal?
I don't know.
Well, to say no would be a contradiction. So do you agree that if it's a contradiction to say truth isn't universal would be to say a universal statement about truth?
Okay. When you put it, yeah, because just to clarify, there's different things that may be true now. That doesn't mean it was always true. But if we're saying the truth itself,
yeah, yes, even in that case, if we were wrong about something, when we're right about it and we come to higher resolution, we're actually discovering something in higher resolution, we call the truth, right? So if truth is conceptual and absolute and universal, and I agree with you, for the sake of this debate, isn't it the case that concepts are habitually tied to a mind?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not that big of a leap to say if truth is absolute and conceptual and concepts are tied to a mind, if humans discover truth and it has some type of existence for us to discover, then it has to exist in a type of mind for us to discover it. So a theistic view, even generally speaking, would say, well, like a divine conceptual view would be human beings have the capacity through their experience and their metaphysics and philosophy to discover something called truth. But to discover it necessitates that it existed before us. If you and me agree with that, any atheist, they might even bite the bullet on that premise. But once I skip to the conclusion that concepts are tied to a mind, they get really squirrely because they know that if truth is a concept from their view and it's universal and it precedes their own existence and all human minds, but it's mind dependent, they've necessitated a mind before them, and they really don't like this.
Can you tell me more about that? I have not found an issue with people seeing that there can't be that you find atheists say that there can't be an independent mind?
Yeah, before humans. Because
I told you I ain't one of them. I told you
I understand. I understand, but if you
Okay.
agree with me, I'm saying there's no way to agree with my syllogism and maintain a non-God position, because the new definition, at least preliminary definition for God, would be this universal mind. So if there are things like logic, which we agree exist, information, knowledge, truth, propositions, universals, and the rest, and these exist not like trees. You and I are on the same page. They don't exist
Yeah, but
like
that's not a
trees.
theistic God. That's a
Well,
deistic.
hold on. Hold on. Yeah, even if you started deistic, like really vague,
Right.
it still necessitates a mind. And so even if I got you or anyone else to at least step away from a non-mind preceding us, then the question is, who is this mind? Who is it? Isn't that fair?
Yeah. Good
So
question.
that would mean if it was fair to pursue a who is this universal mind? Now we're into another level, which is truth is grounded in a person, of actual being, a being, not a tree, not a rock, not the universe, not floaty stuff, an actual being.
Why?
That's
Why is
knowable.
that? Why does that necessitate that?
Because concepts are associated with a mind,
Right.
and what we know of minds is that they're associated with being.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So then look, I'm not going to push you any further on this. I invite you, because you explored these other things, and I give you good reason. I agree with you. You probably have good reason to reject Methodist and Roman Catholicism and a lot of other things you could look at, especially in the West. My invitation to you is, perhaps your pursuit of knowledge is drawing you to Orthodox people like me or Andrew or the rest, and you're actually interested in this topic.
I've been
because
long before you guys are around.
I understand, but you're more interested because we're pushing it. The rest of the people are talking about stuff you're not interested in.
I mean, like I
Go to liturgy.
if it was the case that I was like, oh, the orthodoxy of this, I would have no problems.
Will you go to liturgy?
What is that?
Go to Divine Liturgy, please. Go to Eastern Orthodox Church. Experience.
Is that a website or when?
It's a church. Go to your nearest. I don't know where you are. I don't have to dox you. Go to your nearest Eastern Orthodox church. Rokar. It could be Greek Orthodox. Go experience a Divine Liturgy. Right, from your point of inquiry, you're moving away from atheism, and you have every reason to do that. It's the hardest form
moving
of
away from atheism.
What's that?
I didn't say I was moving away from atheism.
Well, no, you said moving away from atheism. You said moving away from hard atheism is rational. I'm just asking you to keep going.
I mean, again, fair, but it's just a matter of this. You're the million and first person to say, oh, well, you just got to do this, and
not just no. It's not going to be easy, dude. That's the other part.
I think okay. I know. I understand that. I think men. If you can give me the grace of understanding the gravity of what you just told me.
Yes, okay.
I understand. You are the million. It is not a fix.
No, I promise you, it is not a fix. In fact, your life will get harder. But I hold the view that the thing that's so deteriorating the society that we're in, and maybe you can try to be charitable in my assessment of this, I think the missing element and the reason people are moving, especially men, toward traditionalism, isn't just because aesthetics or something that like is unmoved for thousands of years. Of course, that plays in. But what I'm pointing to is that men like you and me, we haven't been drawn into sacrifice and participation. We're not challenged. We're sitting pretty. And so we're all done with it. We're done with sitting pretty. And so we're doing all this philosophy and we're on panels. What I'm saying is, when the reason I'm pointing you in the direction of orthodoxy isn't just because I think it's true. I certainly don't believe it's going to be an easy fix, dude. It's not easy. It's not easy. I'm not going to ask just anybody at any point in time just to do it.
I get that. I am trying to say.
Actually, a compliment to invite you, actually, because it's I appreciate that. There are weak people who aren't actually trying to figure out the clusterfuck that is our reality right now, and you seem to be trying to do it. And so I'm going, absolutely. Cool. He's trying, at least. He's not just going like, nihilism for the win. Like, we need people with your mindset to keep pursuing, dude.
Yes, exactly. So, but so then I am. If I were to do this in the best possible faith with all of everything that anyone could ask, and then I was still in the same position, how would that be irrational to say that I don't believe? Because again, a lot of people told me, oh, the Catholic Church, this church,
Yeah,
you
I
go to that
understand.
church, you read this, and so on and so on. And they all said, if you do this,
it would
they
all
were all
depend
wrong.
on your reasoning. And I'm totally, whether it's on screen or off, you can hit me up. If you go to an Orthodox experience and go to a divine liturgy and you go, you know what, there's something there, I just don't know what it is. Like, I'd be happy with that. I wouldn't even lay anything else on you. I'd just say, yeah, dude, just keep going. I would ask you, when you hit a bump, I would take you as a case by case. I would say, what's the bump, bro? Like, it wouldn't even be a debate forum. It would be DMs or a phone call. I'd be like, what's the bump? What's the
Okay,
bump?
so I mean, it would be the basic truth claims, the basic truth claims. I think the ethics, all that stuff. But when it comes to things like the resurrection, things like the existence of a temporal God, all that kind of stuff, I can't buy into that. Which is why I have such a great respect for Christian ethics, but not specifically the truth claims.
Let's go there. Let's see if that's rational. So I'm going to ask you, what's the standard, the criterion you're using to determine that, let's say, for instance, if God existed, he not only wouldn't or couldn't condescend as human, but couldn't resurrect? Is you just holding to a naturalism position? Is that what okay. And so naturalism is your new standard for what is possible and not possible, right?
In this context, yeah.
Okay. And would you say what you're determining is possible and not possible, being strictly naturalistic, you're relying on induction, right?
Sure. Like, and again, just to be clear, I'm not saying that that I couldn't believe in these things. I'm just saying that currently I don't accept them.
Okay, they would be constituted as miracles, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're saying I don't believe in miracles because my go-to standard for what's true and false is naturalism, right?
More or less.
Okay. Would you say that a miracle under that view would be defined as something that the regular laws of logic, like anything that exists or occurs, that the regular laws of physics, not logic.
Yeah.
Anything that occurs in the world that the regular laws of physics can't explain, would you say that's miraculous?
It would depend. I would say the only reason I'm hesitating is because we don't have a full understanding.
I understand. You don't have all variables, right?
So, I mean, yeah, maybe I would use the word miraculous, but the first step when we see something that seems to break the laws of physics wouldn't be like, oh, wow, that's a miracle.
Yeah, but
the assumption would be, oh, there's a different law that applies.
I understand. That's fair. But what I'm asking you is a different question. If something definitionally, it actually couldn't be explained by the regularity of physics.
How would we determine that?
Well, hold on a second. Just stick with granting that there could be something that just couldn't be explained by the regularity of physics and nature.
Okay.
I can help you determine one thing that by your own view would be miraculous. So if we agree, I'm not saying something we don't understand yet. I'm saying that if there was something that existed that actually definitionally, logically couldn't be explained by the laws of physics and the regularity of nature, you would say that's a miracle, right?
So you're saying if it existed a possibility that we could know that something could happen, or rather that something
couldn't be explained,
happen,
we know it couldn't be explained. Yeah,
I guess, but you would need, in that hypothetical, you would need to be able to have a standard as to why it couldn't be explained.
No, we could. We could rejecting an entailment would be a standard. Do you agree that we could come to truth not just by empirical analysis, but by negation or the impossibility of the contrary?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you one thing that exists, a phenomenon that exists in nature, because just keep in mind, what you determine is possible and isn't possible is given by the regularity of nature, that's unfolding in a regular way. And when something violates that, we go, there's got to be something fishy going on here, another law, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is that the regularity itself, the way nature behaves, is something that can't be explained by that regularity. Do you agree? The regularity, like the way reality works, laws of physics, thermodynamics, gaseous law, and the rest, right? There's a way in which the world operates, the universe operates.
What is it that you're saying can't be explained?
What I'm saying is that regularity can't be explained by the regularity.
Yeah, okay.
So now we have one thing that you could observe in reality that actually goes outside of the bounds of naturalistic explanations. because naturalistic explanations, you have to grant yourself regularity first. Then we can do also, I don't even deny naturalistic explanations, right? Very useful. But you can't do naturalistic explanations unless you grant yourself that the world is regular in a certain way.
Sure. I mean, we're running a little low on time. If I can ask you slightly, kind of pivot a little bit. I think the atheism thing here, as you brought up rights before, I think love is another instance where I would prefer. So if you've never been in love, then why would it be irrational for somebody to think that love doesn't exist?
Well, that's a good question. I think if you don't have a reference for what love is, you need to be taught love, right? So, I mean, a Christian paradigm has an account for teaching love, but I think the atheist is in a worse position because a lot of times they're not like you. They're holding to a materialistic. They'd actually say, and you probably met them.
No, but
they probably say
the irrationality.
Well, no, they would say that love is a chemical reaction. You've heard this before, right?
Yep.
You don't believe that, right?
I mean, it's not a chemical reaction. I think there's more to it, but oxytocin and such are real.
Right. But let's say it was, though. Let's just try to get into the purely naturalistic view. Because keep in mind, you're rejecting supernatural claims on the basis of naturalism, but you accept things like love. So it's interesting that you, and I'm glad you do, accept things like love can't be reduced to materialism, but you also negate that someone could resurrect. But the thing is, you accept that love, I would say from a purely atheistic view, love itself would transcend nature. It couldn't be identical to items in the world. Couldn't be identical to matter itself. Like you just said, there might be a chemical aspect to it, but the thing
why is that different than God then?
Well, because I'm saying that what you're now assuming, which I am glad you assume, because I think it's irrational to try to refute it, is that reality itself for you and I and everyone else is composed of material, and there's an immaterial reality to our existence.
Okay.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. So if there's an immaterial reality to our existence that's not identical to matter, according to a strict naturalist, at least, this is already above nature. This is not found in nature. Love, even information, something they could actually grasp, information, that, according to that paradigm, is actually supernatural. It doesn't exist in nature. It doesn't exist in any Cartesian location, information. So that's why I ask people like yourself who are on the fence, if you agree information exists and minds exist and concepts exist, but they don't exist like trees or apples or these things, I always ask the person in your position, in what way do they exist? What's the way? Because an apple exists material. We can hold an apple, bite an apple, right?
So even if we're going to say tangentially it exists in this whatever, I'm still not seeing how that answer is irrational. Because again, it's not about is it wrong, it's about is it rational.
Here's why it's irrational. It's irrational for an atheistic view because the thing you're pointing to, concepts, laws of logic, universals, particulars, words, meaning, math, minds, love, to their view, right? They assume these things exist, but they don't exist materially.
What
I'm saying, just an atheistic view who denies God. If you
take some atheists sometimes somewhere, so it's not an entailment of atheism. It's not an entailment of atheism.
No, it is because the denial of God. This is where it gets disjunctive, which is there's an either or. If you deny God,
Are we going back to your safe corner where we're only talking about strong atheism?
Listen, dude.
I'm just asking. I'm just asking.
I'm trying to explain it. Any soft atheism, any view that denies or is not convinced by a God existing, I'm saying the things you're appealing to are not found in nature, and in their nature itself would be conceptual. So what I'm saying is it's irrational to be an atheist on any scale of the spectrum, because to be an atheist, you're still appealing to information, meaning, language, math, laws of logic, knowledge, information, minds. What I'm saying is to hold a non-God view is to hold a view that you just grant yourself what we call the transcendental category. And I'm saying it's not rational to ad hoc grant yourself a whole category that's not found in nature. It's not rational. You're just granting yourself that That I'm saying it's ad hoc. Ad hoc is an actual fallacy. If we agree fallacies are not rational, ad hoc granting yourself axioms or these sort of a priori things without any justification, I'm saying that's irrational.
And I mean, like, fair. I think that when you talk about this specific definite, I don't know, is ontological the right word? I don't fucking know. But you get into the at that level, then there's definitely ways to define things in a certain way. So this means that, and that means that, and that means that. And I'm doing my best to follow what you're saying. But this obviously isn't a layman discussion. And
no.
So what I'm arguing is that it's not crazy or insane for someone to be unconvinced of the claim.
Well, I'm saying
it
is, and here's why. Do you agree being unconvinced of a claim would assume some sort of epistemic system to come to the position of unconvinced?
Yes. Do you agree that do you believe that? Do you agree that being atheist doesn't mean that you don't have that?
No, I'm saying you use it. The difference between using logic, I'm saying the real question is, can you justify the tool you're using? Because that's where it would be irrational. Because if an atheist came to a naturalistic claim or an empirical position that said God doesn't exist because I don't see evidence, or I don't think he would do these things, whatever the argument is, whatever their position they're going to come to is going to be downstream from a bunch of assumptions. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm saying is the assumptions, once we check the assumptions, they don't have the same reason they're denying God's existence. They should deny all of the assumptions before them. Does that make sense?
Again, yes, that makes sense. But I think and maybe I'm splitting hairs, but I do think that you are still falling into incorrect and not illogical or irrational.
I would put them to, you have to say if something's correct, it would be logical, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if it's incorrect, we could say it's illogical because that's what we dictate as incorrect. What I'm saying is that the same.
So
listen,
wait.
Listen,
Okay.
hold on. Let me see.
Wait. That's a good point there. That's a good point there. So would you say that anyone who believes something that is not true is has an irrational belief?
Well, that's the thing in question. Not true assumes objective truth exists. That's what I'm calling it.
Okay, so let's assume that objective truth exists. Is someone who believes or doesn't believe something that is true, or they're irrational because they're wrong? So people who are rational agents are the people who have all the right answers all the time.
No, not like that. Let's look at the truth itself existing. If I asked an atheist, does truth exist? If they say yes, I'm telling you that by their own criterion, they're actually being irrational to say that truth exists. Why? I'll tell you why. Yeah. Because if I ask an atheist, even yourself, does truth exist? And you say yes, I'm going to ask you, how does it exist? In what way does it exist? Because saying existence is an ontological statement and a metaphysical statement. So I'm going to question the atheist metaphysics and ontology and go, interesting. I also agree truth exists, but from your view, I'm having a hard time when you say truth exists. What's the way in which it exists? You have a guitar in the back, you have a couch that exists in a particular way. You and I as material beings, at least our bodies exist in a certain way. It's totally fair for me to ask the atheists, if they believe truth exists, I'm going to ask them, cool, now you're determining what's reasonable to believe in for its existence and what's unreasonable. I'm saying to deny God based on the empirical standard, I don't see evidence. I'm saying that's irrational from the atheist position because truth itself is immaterial and there's no evidence. You don't have physical evidence of truth. So they're assuming things they should deny. They should deny truth. When they do deny truth. They think they could breastfeed as a man. They think they could breastfeed.
Leftism. That's not atheism.
It's an entailment, bro.
We agree on that part. We hate
the
birthing people.
You're being reasonable because you're moving away from atheism. That's why you're being reasonable.
I'm not moving away from atheism.
Yeah, you are.
I'm moving away from an affirmative belief that God doesn't exist.
Good. That's away from atheism.
Maybe you're right. God. But either way, I still don't see how anything that you said comes down to being wrong versus being irrational. I think you kept conflating the two.
Because the atheist,
only the strong atheist. I agree with you. The strong atheist I agree with you that the strong
Okay.
atheist.
All right,
is
we're
irrelevant.
gonna wrap up the open portion there. Thank you to both of you, killing it tonight. All right, we're gonna get into the 5-minute closing statements. Just a reminder for the chat. There's a lot of super chats, so we're probably not gonna get to the Q&A. But if you guys want to make sure your questions or comments get read, send it in super chat, and we'll make sure we read it for you guys in the Q&A portion. That's right after the closing. So with the closings, Indian Jesus, you had the first word, so you're going to have the first word for this closing, and then that gives Jim Bob the last word. That's usually the way I do it, kind of balances it out, you know what I mean? So again, thank you both for being here, and Indian Jesus, whenever you're ready, I will start up the timer with your voice.
Yeah, so most of this time I was being charitable because Jim Bob wouldn't stick on the spectrum of atheism that the word actually means, and whenever we came to a point of rationality, then he jumped back to the strong atheist is, well, that's all of them. It wasn't until the last 10 minutes or so where we actually got into discussions of other types of atheism and where that rationality is. And, he said a lot of stuff, and I'm sure a lot of it is correct, but I don't think that at the end of the day, when we are discussing these things, there is a strong difference in that which is illogical and that which is incorrect. And I think he is conflating the two, hopefully not on purpose, but you never know. You never know. Again, I was here to defend the notion that I don't know, but I am unconvinced is a rational position. And I didn't really hear very many arguments, again, outside of the strong atheist. Again, a lot of that stuff with the atheist perspective and all that stuff, unless you're specifically talking about the strong atheist on the topic of God, there is no such thing as the atheist perspective, and so that's just another way to smuggle in other things. Irrational is not or incorrect does not mean irrational. Atheist, well, we got past that. And I think with anytime you hear somebody say the atheist perspective on something that isn't a theistic God, just switch that with the dog owner's perspective on and see if it makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, then it's the same thing for atheism. Atheism is a position. It answers one question. Do you believe in God? Nothing else. It is not a worldview. It is not an ideology. All these other things come from other places. So it's not that if you are an atheist, you don't have a worldview. It is that your worldview comes from somewhere other than the claim of atheism. Thank you both, and I'll consume my time.
All right. Thank you for that closing statement. And with that, we're going to hand the mic over to Jim Bob. And Jim Bob, whenever you're ready, I'll start the timer up with your voice.
All right. No, thank you so much. It was a fun conversation and debate. The question of whether atheism is rational, it doesn't matter if you're the hardline 10 out of 10 atheism or even the close to theism or Christianity too. The problem is an atheist, like my opponent, thinks that their belief or disbelief in God is somehow neutral. It's not, because you're assuming a bunch of things already to come to that conclusion. You have an epistemic system. You believe that you're that you're a thinker, that you have a mind, that reason exists, that logic exists, that the world operates a certain way. You believe in information and meaning and mathematics, and you think about all of these things. You think you're an agent in the world and there's an external world. These are all metaphysical claims. So when an atheist says, look, atheism is totally rational. It's just an isolated position on an isolating topic. It's not. I demonstrated tonight, you can't come to a position on atheism, soft or hard, without assuming a bunch of things beforehand. And so what I demonstrated, and this is always the case, the reasons people deny God, evidentialism, God shouldn't do these things, these are not rational positions. If you hold the position that God doesn't exist, or you don't have a belief in God exists, whether it's hard or soft of a claim, you're actually using most of the time an evidential position, which is to say, well, there's no evidence for it. This is the Matt Dillahunty approach, right? The problem is There's no evidence physically of truth. There's no evidence physically of the laws of logic. There's no evidence of knowledge. There's no evidence of information. There's no evidence physically of universals. There's no evidence of meaning and mathematics. There's a whole category of things there's no evidence for. And the atheist can't come to the position to deny God without assuming a bunch of things they should also deny. I demonstrated that that's an irrational position. You're denying this thing, and you're accepting this whole slew of other things, but by the same standard, you should deny them because there's no evidence for those things. Rights was just a good example. He pointed to there's good evidence for rights because people use force. People use force in places that they don't care about rights, right? That would mean that there's evidence of God because I did something using force, right? That would follow. That's actually not rational either. What is rational is to go off of your experience, go off of what's in accordance with reason and logic, and going off of what's in accordance with reason and logic, it's included to ask a question. What justifies reason and logic? That's a fair question. My opponent, glory to God, admitted that's a fair question. So the atheist doesn't get away with getting to their conclusion without accounting for how they got there. That's what's in question. That's actually how we determine something's irrational. I showed tonight that you cannot hold an atheist position and come to conclusions without assuming beliefs exist. Is there any evidence for beliefs, right? If some atheist says, oh, no, I have a set of beliefs, I just don't have a belief in God. Well, you have a belief that beliefs exist, don't you? No, we can go super meta. My opponent, does he believe that beliefs exist? Well, I'm sorry, that's another conceptual category that's not found in nature. You can't find a belief. In fact, he should deny, an atheist who says, I don't have any evidence for God, therefore I don't believe in God, should deny beliefs. They don't exist in nature. You cannot hold them. You can't put them in a petri dish. These are universal, conceptual, not found in nature. And the argument, even the movement toward a God, even if it's a nebulous God, even if it's just a divine conceptual God, that's more reasonable than the denial of God or even a soft denial of God. So I don't care if you're on the spectrum. Honestly, this whole spectrum shit has really got out of hand. Every time someone doesn't want a strong position, they have no convictions, they develop a spectrum and they say, well, it's blurry. I don't have a position. There's a 10 out of 10 autism, and there's a 3 out of 10. There's a 10 out of 10 I'm a man, and there's a 3 out of 10 I'm a man. Everything gets relative, right? And I didn't even push on relativism. All atheism reduces to relativism. Here's why. I don't care if you're soft atheism like he is or a hard atheism. The reason it reduces to relativism is because atheism, whether you're a 10 out of 10, Dillahunty, or a 5, glory to God, maybe a 2 out of 10, the Indian Jesus will come around and find orthodoxy. The reason it leads to relativism is because they don't have an absolute standard for truth, which makes arguing for God's existence irrelevant because they don't have an absolute standard for truth. And yet here they are affirming that truth exists. And I go, where? Nowhere.
All right. Thank you for that closing statement. And with that, we're going to get over into the Q&A, the 30-minute Q&A. Just a quick reminder for everybody in the chat one more time. I see a lot of super chats here, so it's gonna most likely run through the time. But if you want to make sure you get your question read, send in a super chat, and then after the Q&A, we're going to be doing open panel, chaos and chill. Are both of you staying for the open panel as well?
Yeah, I'll be for a while at least.
All right,
I just refilled, so we good.
Yeah, so after that, we're going to be doing the open panel. So prepare your questions for that too, if you want to come up and question it yourself. All right. So let me. I usually start with a question of my own for both sides. So my question for. So we're going to start with Lutch's side. If you're uncertain about God's existence, what would make the negative conclusion there is no God the more rational position than simply suspending your judgment?
That's it. Well, that's what agnostic atheism is. It's suspending judgment, saying I am unconvinced. I don't know. I'm not on this side or that side. So, on the question of what would convince me, it's a cliche. I don't know, but God does. So if He exists, He knows exactly how to find me, and I'm definitely searching. So,
well, so that's why I'm asking the question though, because like the debate was like for atheists. So like, I'm asking you to defend why atheism is rational.
Because there's the evidence of the truth claims are we have evidence, but it's not anything that is beyond the realm of it must be convincing. There's a reason why many people are unconvinced, and I would say I didn't even get to bring this up, but so like Jimbob mentioned how I don't have the right to I don't remember what word you used, but the to believe in beliefs or argue beliefs or whatever. Even if I didn't, that wouldn't make it untrue, the arguments that I'm making. And so in the same way, I don't know how I don't know. That's unfortunately that's the answer. I don't know.
All right. Did you have something for that, Jimbob?
Yeah, I would say like if you have a belief, if you claim, right, I have a belief or I have a disbelief, you're arguing that there's a certain status for that thing you're referring to as a belief, right? You're also assuming there's a you, like a mind, that you're not a mechanical device, that you think about things. This has some active will in the matter. I'm saying from an atheistic view, whether a 10 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10 in softness or hardness, it's totally fair and you should pursue this. You should pursue the question, well, I'm not going to deny the existence that I have a belief, and you shouldn't. But you should at least press yourself and ask the question, okay, under my view currently, agnostic atheist, what is a belief? Like actually, what is it? What's the status of it? Is it just molecules in motion? Is it just an event? Like, do I have any control? Like, these are good questions you should ask. And I think you, being someone who claims to be in the pursuit of truth, I believe you will pursue this and you will find the answer.
All right, awesome. And then my question for your side, Jimbob, is so if the atheist position requires this certainty to be rational, with your worldview, do you meet the same standard, or does it have a different threshold of evidence for yourself?
It's less to do with certitude, because I would also admit from my worldview, humans can be wrong. We can be clouded in our conclusions, and our in orthodoxy, our nous, which is our metaphysical, which I really think the Indian Jesus would adopt to well, this distinction, the nous, that could be clouded with sin and all sorts of things. So it's less about certitude. It's more about, do you have a justification that truth is even something you can pursue at all? So it's a holistic view, Speakeasy. It's a good question, but it's less about unique particular stances and conclusions about things, because I also hold that you can come to truth in higher resolution over time. So it's not about certainty about your own propositions. It's more about whether or not there's certainty about the thing you're assuming. And I'm saying that if you're uncertain that truth even exists, then the pursuit of even particular claims is irrational. Like, why would you pursue truth if your overall worldview holds that you don't even have a standard for absolute truth? What is the case and not? What can be possible or not possible? You don't have access. So it's like an atheist pursuing truth is like freaking Ray Charles trying to beat his wife. He's never going to find her.
Shit. Did you have something for that much?
Yeah, I think this is just a false dichotomy. This allusion to, well, the spectrum is like, that's kind of just like a gay little. We're getting more specific about these beliefs, and I'm not changing anything. I'm not using the spectrum as a thing. I'm clearly a 5. That is a descriptive thing. So yeah, I don't know how the notion that maybe atheism itself doesn't contain these philosophical properties, therefore an atheist agree to that.
All right. So let's get into these super chats. I gotta scroll all the way up here. So with the ones that aren't questions, if you guys have anything you want to say to them, just stop me, and we'll get through these here. So first, we got a few new members here on both sides. So we got Inward, new member. Thank you. Great name. Abby, new member. Thank you very much. We got Andre Lopez, new member as well. Oh, there it is. We got Red Fox, new member as well. Thank you to all of you. Box comes in. 10 minutes to rebut religion. I think Hitch had something to say about that.
Shout out to Hitch, R.I.P.
Then we got Marcus.
Hitch, I wanted to say something on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Christopher Hitchens actually didn't have good arguments. If you look at Alex O'Connor, he did a pretty rigorous review of it. And Hitchens was really likable and really good at rhetoric. He was really good at that. He was very likable. He was really funny, well-spoken. But if you really type out his arguments in a transcription form, he had no arguments. It was crazy. But I would still have a scotch with him. But he was a shit debater.
Base, I like it. $5 comes in from Marcus Antonio Latch. I like it. Thank you. Mrs. D, member for 6 months. Jim Bob is a poofta Jake Rattlesnake. And thank you, Mrs. D. $10 come in from Alter Void. Oh shit. Jim Bob has the shoulders out today. I seen a lot of love for the shoulders out today. $10 comes in from Draco. Holy cow, those some wide shoulders. See, there's more love for the shoulders. $5 from Christopher Scott comes in. Holy cow, I didn't know Vagine had a brother.
Thank you. Come again.
Alter Void for $10 comes in and says shoulders has him rattled. $5 from the Cheap Chimp says yes, sir. Thank you, the Cheap Chimp. X-Type Gaming comes in for $5. Doesn't say anything, just wants to support. And thank you for that. $2 comes in from Ericata. I need him to bring up Matt Dillamonkey as a source.
Nah, I'm good with that.
I've had talks with Lutch before, and I don't think he really likes Matt Dillahunty much. So,
is that when you moved away? When people started saying like dudes could be women and vice versa, and you're like, wait a second, this is an attack on the universality of certain categories, right?
Yep.
It was like this is it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, maybe not him specifically, but definitely he was before that point, the atheist experiences show was a really good tool for me to, understand things. And I actually used it because like my parents are very religious. And so like, I was just trying to explain like, who I am, what I was going through, all that stuff when it was happening. And the conversations would just get out of control because my parents are it's very close to them, and so I was able to use that show and be like, okay, so you see how that guy has really bad beliefs? I just think that about your beliefs too. It's a little bit easier. But then he married a tranny, and what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? Marcus Antonio for $5 says, "Why is he interrupting himself?" I think that might have came in during this was 9, so this was during one of the openings. Red Fox comes in for $10, says, since atheists don't like the concept of God, I'm curious how they respond to the postmodern subjective critique.
I don't have any problems with the concept of God. I just don't believe that it exists. So I'm curious how to respond to the postmodern subjective critique. What would specifically meaning like the my preferences thing? Is that what this is?
Well, even more so that like, we're just kind of sort of inventing through language what reality is. Clearly you reject that, given that we just talked about Matt Dillahunty. He thinks he could just define. That's the irony, is he thinks he can define reality and make a man a woman just by thinking it. But he denies that, like, if we used his standard, a Christian could just invent God and invent the same world, and it just includes God, and it's just as rational. You're just like speaking it into existence. Be like, well, I declare that this exists. That something's that's otherwise not the case is the case, and that's where, honestly, that's where a lot of this stuff leads to. And I do think it's an entailment of atheism. You don't think so? Maybe this isn't the night where you're convinced, perhaps, but one day I think you will see that these things have entailments and they find their conclusion. And what I'm saying is the conclusion is, if you're an atheist at whatever spectrum, a 2 or a 10, because you don't have an absolute standard for truth, you can't actually ground universals like a man is a man and a woman is a woman. And so the movement for atheism necessarily moves to the denial of universals. And so it's to the Christians, we're actually not surprised that all of the atheistic progressives who started hardcore atheism and ran with it, we're not surprised that they come to really insane conclusions. You're surprised, but you still have some time to piece together how you can't really separate these things. Absolute truth, there's a man and a woman. That's part of absolute truth, right? Well, that needs to be grounded. If you could change that based on evolving or nature and all these tweaking, then you think that you can violate the law of identity. And I don't think you hold that you can violate the law of identity. So you're on the right track.
Yeah, but I still believe that and again, maybe I'm wrong, but to a certain level, I still think that without proof of what God actually is, whether or not there is a God, even if you want to say that God is necessary, without knowing what that God is, then I think it's just
that's whatever. Right. And I invited you to go see who God is. Are you going to accept my invitation?
Yeah.
I mean, you've looked at everything else. You might as well listen to old JimBob here and go check out a divine liturgy, right?
Yeah. I didn't get an answer on what happens when I go and I keep my mind and heart open.
We'll pass that. We'll pass that bridge when it comes up, okay?
A little bit of a cop-out, but fair enough.
No, it's not. Why skip to the future? I don't want to put, look, I don't want to put other things into the space if you can go experience it exactly where you are right now, mentally, spiritually. I'm not going to add in stuff, right? There's no point. That's the future. I just want you to go into the door, right? You know what I mean? I just want you to get in the door.
Fair enough.
Based.
Okay.
$5 comes in from Von Hlowicki. I probably butchered that last part. He sounds like Stephen Hawking on 2-speed. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Another $5 comes in from Smalls and says, it's like Russell Brand if he was from New Delhi.
I get that all the time. I get Russell Brand. I get Indian Russell Brand, Indian Moist Critical, and Indian Jared Leto. I don't see it, but I'll take it.
That's good.
You're gonna make a great Orthodox, dude.
You're
gonna make a great Orthodox.
Project VOPod for $2 said, "Made by JimBob. Let's fucking go." Oh, he wrote Jim Job. I read it wrong. Jake, asshole. Just kidding. Shout out Jake. John Mondragon says, this guy has pickles for brains. All right, no response.
John Mondragon.
The cheap chimp for $5 says, how does Jesus get his hair so shiny?
Conditioner.
Is there a technique for that?
Just regular ass suave conditioner.
Someone said pray for Indian Dave Grohl. That's pretty good. That's pretty accurate.
It's in the genes. It's in the I lost the joke, but I was gonna make a joke about the caste system and my genetics and that stuff.
All right.
We got if it all fails. There we go. Clutch those Google Play cards tight, Jim Bob. He greasy. I get it now. At first, I was not getting it, but now I get it. We got the $2 from Justin Henley. I think he was referring to me,
Sorry,
maybe,
it's a little
because I do
nervous.
say a lot.
I'm sure it was me. I say it.
Oh, okay.
When I do the captions,
you probably say it more than me. So
yeah. When I do the captions on TikTok, it's like, God damn it. The
TikToks, yeah, just straight yeah.
just cut it all out of
That's
all.
probably why I don't do that.
Yeah. 253 Monty became a new member. Shout out Monty. Justin Henley for another $5. Theism, belief in God or gods, adding a before words makes it not that amoral, not moral, asexual, no sexual.
there you
That
go.
was hard to read. That was hard to read, Justin. All right, but I did it for you. Thanks. Thank you for the.
But he is correct. Amoral means without morals. Asexual means without sex. Just like atheist means without a belief in a god or gods. Good job.
All right. $5 from XB says Indian Jesus. Is it rational for an atheist to make moral claims with a worldview where all morals are subjective? Doesn't seem very logical.
I mean, it would depend on that specific person, because the morals aren't in atheism specifically. So it would be the other philosophies that you use. But let's say we're going with moral subjectivity. There's different realms. So I believe that we are in a realm where objective truth exists, but that truth doesn't necessarily need to exist outside of that realm. So it depends. I don't know. Again, it's not part of atheism. So you would have to ask each individual atheist.
Well, let me give an example. Would it be rational for someone to go out to dinner and they had a bad experience with the chicken, like it was a chicken, and instead of typing "this chicken wasn't so good, it was undercooked," they actually said this was an immoral chicken? Would that be rational?
No.
Okay. So what the question is a really good question, because if all things reduce to preferences, it's not actually rational for an atheist if they equate preferences to morality. It's not rational, because if you actually use the term, it would make sense to say the chicken was immoral tonight, but that doesn't make sense to us. It says, I don't like the chicken. I don't prefer the chicken. That makes sense in the review. But if an atheist is consistent, like the questioner says, the atheist actually shouldn't use the word moral, because they're actually just trying to sort of like obfuscate or make it like a jump between categories, what you prefer, and it's moral, like there's an evil or good component to it. I'm not sure why. Well, no, I do know why atheists are still drawn intuitively to making moral claims. Well, because I think Christianity is true, is that morality is actually written on a part of our existence that isn't just material. And you, glory to God, agree that there's a feature of humanity that's spiritual, that isn't just mechanical, where we do come to intuitions about morality that isn't strictly licorice doesn't taste good, therefore licorice is immoral. Now, yeah, that's irrational, right? That's irrational.
So just so I'm clear, you're saying that if an atheist if atheist agrees that morals are subjective, then it would be equally accurate to say that the chicken was immoral. But
yes,
but then doesn't there's a way to break down the level of preference that one, and maybe arbitrarily say my preferences within this level are amoral, but once I hate it this much, or once I love it this much, then that gets into morality.
Well, no, hold on. What if you really love Chuck E. Cheese more than anything? Would Chuck E. Cheese be morally good just because you loved it like the most out of everything?
No, but again, that just wouldn't reach the
yeah. So
I don't abide by that, so I'm just kind of
you're posing a counter, but I think that let's look at the system for a second. Like, let's look at it. You would agree, even though you're not holding this view. Let's just say that view is posited. You would have to ask the person, well, what's the symmetry breaker between all these things you kind of like licorice, coffee, ice cream, and then you're saying there's like this like increasing categorical distinction that suddenly at some point there's a threshold and you go, no, I don't like that and it's immoral, versus I don't like that because I just don't like peanut butter. But, to be fair, if someone said that, it would be fair for you or me to ask them, okay, how do you determine the threshold of where you like things, but when you really like things, then it's moral, or where you really don't like things, then it's immoral? I don't think they could give an answer.
I agree, but the thing is that I see I see religion kind of in the same way, that without the proof of God, then it's just I prefer this structure. So I agree with you.
But dude, without the proof of like truth existing, you're gonna have to actually bite the bullet and say it's just what you prefer.
Yeah.
So you think truth is grounded in preferences then?
Yes.
That's rational?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's rational. Listen, it's rational to hold a view that truth is grounded in your preferences. So you don't actually have an argument against Matt Dillahunty because he prefers believing that a man is a woman. So it's actually rational of what he's doing.
No, because again, we're talking about the different realms. We have a shared reality. In that shared reality, then whether a woman is a woman or a man is a man, that is a fact. That is not up for preference.
Not if by your standard, if someone prefers otherwise, you just said preference can determine what's true.
No, I said according to them, they would say that, but I don't think inherently, because there is a level of subjectivity to morality, that means that everything is just up to whatever you think.
Right. Well, that means you agree with me that there would have to be an absolute standard for truth that needs to be grounded in something beyond human preference, right?
Right. And I don't think that exists.
So, well, no, would God be that necessary thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, this is a key point. If logically speaking, that the way to ground absolute truth necessitates a God, you just don't believe God exists, even though you just admitted that God logically would be necessary for all truth to be grounded in something, right?
No, I said if God exists and he was that come on, don't make the Sam Harris argument.
No, do it.
Well, if I was right, then I would. If things were different, then I would be right.
No, do it in reverse. If absolute truth exists, would that necessitate God's existence?
No.
Okay, you have to tell me how it's no. I say it's not no. I say you can't ground absolute truth without God. Can you ground absolute truth without God?
Absolute no, but objective, yeah. And so,
well,
again,
let's say objective. Let's just go with objective.
Okay, but then we're on even ground then. So if I appeal to Aristotelian virtue ethics and you appeal to Christian ethics,
no, forget morality. Forget morality. Just truth itself.
Okay.
Truth being absolute, unchanging, and discoverable. You tell me how you can ground ontologically the existence of truth without God.
I don't know that truth I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
Doesn't mean that I'm wrong. I just don't know the right answer.
Fair enough. Go to liturgy.
And I think I want to put just a tie bow on that. Like that is the whole idea here, is that it's a common thing where Christians will look at atheists and say, well, if it's not this, then what is it? And we haven't had 2,000 years of people talking about this and studying this and all that stuff. That's what I'm trying to start, is a something that we would agree is moral and just.
Wait, we haven't had 2,000 years of debate? Is that what you just said?
On a secular moral structure?
Well,
worldwide? No.
You're saying that if we just give secularism some time to debate, then maybe we'll come out and with something fruitful or something, you're saying?
Yeah. If atheists start to accept that the reason that secular humanism doesn't work is because it doesn't have the driving factor that religion does, then we can. At least theoretically, it is possible that we can come up with something better.
Well, I'm saying that under secularism and atheism, there's no reason to say we should pursue that for 2,000 years.
What do you mean?
There's no reason why
preferences. People like being alive. People like having society.
Preferences are all particulars. There's no reason why to be an atheist or a secularist, there's no reason why they should get on board to pursue 2,000 years of uncovering philosophical.
They want to.
There's no.
They want to. Yeah, because they care about. They care. Yeah.
They want to. Yeah. So
All of
So
it is
setting
your
up-
preferences.
I got you.
Your preferences versus my preferences.
So
versus
then,
third
so
person's
then your
preferences.
standard for truth in the pursuit of truth is merely preference. That would say that whatever you came to a conclusion about in the regards of truth and philosophy over 2,000 years would just be a result of what you preferred to come to the conclusion to, right?
Essentially, yeah.
Right. That means subjectivism.
Same with you.
So is
with you.
subjectivism rational?
Yeah.
Really? If subjectivism is true, then there's no absolute standard for what's rational. So how could subjectivism be rational if it makes rationality itself completely subjective? How could you say that sentence? You can't.
Because again, we're talking about the different realms. We have a shared reality where there are things that are true and not true.
Is that subjective or objective? Is that objective or a subjective?
That's objective, but just
so there is objective
yes,
truth.
so I'm saying, but that's not inherent to the universe. It's objective because of
we're back to the problem of atheism and secularism. They want to assume objective truth exists. We ask them to define it. They say preferences. They just give us 2,000 years of debate led by our preferences. And I go, wait a second. If the truth of the matter is pursued based on preferences, and so are the conclusions. He says, yeah, there's no problem. I said, that's subjectivism. And then I go, so we're going to pursue rationality. If subjectivism is true, then rationality is all subjective too. There's no real thing called the truth or logical or anything, right? So
not
it's
inherent
really
to the universe,
it's
but
really
based on our shared universe, there is. So like
that's a contradiction.
No, it's not. The game of chess is a perfect example of this.
No, you just said there's nothing objectively true about the universe.
I don't know. I don't think so. But
really,
so, again,
hold on. No,
let me use the example, and then you just went on a whole fucking rant, bro. Can I talk? Am I a part of this too, or is it the Jimbob show?
It's the Jimbob show mostly. So if it's the case that you just said you're not sure, and it's fine. It's a hard question, right, on the spot. But the thing is, I want you to get this. If you believe that the universe existed objectively in a very certain way and operated a very certain way before any of us existed.
I'm just going to go back to chess when you're done.
That's fine. If you believe that there was a past where a universe objectively existed the way it does before we existed, then there is a true objective state of affairs of the universe. There is.
Okay. So again, we have the that may be true on one level, but that doesn't mean that it is inherent to the universe. And so again, as I was saying with chess, there are objective moves in chess that are better than other moves in chess. That doesn't mean that we didn't make up chess. That doesn't mean that the game of chess was a subjective concept that came out of a human mind and not inherent to the universe. So
wait a second.
I view morality in the same way.
So wait a second.
Morality in the same way.
Does chess still follow absolute laws like logic?
Sure.
Okay. So is logic something you hold to be absolutely objective and not based on preferences?
As far as I know, but there again, I don't know. Maybe there's situations where that doesn't hold true.
Well, to say it doesn't hold true is to appeal to that it is true, because logic itself would hold that you can't have one thing true and also false at the same time. So I would say because of the inability or the absurdity to the contrary, impossibility of the contrary, we would hold to the laws of logic, the classical laws. Truth itself is objective, invariant, and discoverable by human beings. And so if that's the case, what do you get? Honestly, let's just like change it to a more conversational for a second. What do you get out of holding to a subjective view?
I just believe that's what it is. It's not to gain. Just like with religion itself, being convinced of something is not a choice. I can't choose to believe in God anymore.
Can you choose to I understand, but can you choose to pursue deeper levels of truth?
Yeah.
Okay, so you reject that you're just a mechanical biological device, right?
Yes, but in the tiniest way. Yes, I believe that consciousness.
Wait a second. Wait. Tiniest way. Why?
Because I believe that consciousness is something that is a significant part of that equation, but I don't know how much, and the rest of it.
Okay. Let me ask you in a different way.
I'm not a strict materialist or determinist, but more or less.
So maybe this will help you branch out where you draw the line out. A a lot of materialists will just hold that you and I are basically mechanical biological devices unfolding deterministically. That is to say, everything I'm about to say and everything you're about to respond to is completely determined by strict materialism. We both reject that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you agree that we do have a mechanism and we're constrained by our mechanism, but we're not completely determined. We have a will in the matter.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a whole other conversation too. But again,
it's not actually off bounds.
For the purposes of the conversation, yes. I have issues with that, but for the purposes of the conversation, yes.
What scale of the autism atheist spectrum that you invoked, what scale can justify personhood and will?
None of them, because that's not part of what atheism does. It is the answer to one question. It is not a worldview. It is not an ideology. From the very beginning, you keep coming back to what atheism does.
Wait a second.
Oh, yeah. You're gonna go. We're gonna go back to Jim Bob's corner, where
that's right.
It is affirmative.
That's right.
Belief. Well, then that's irrational. I agree that there is a part of atheists that are irrational, but being an atheist does not mean that you are irrational.
Here we got a lot of super chats still to get to here, and this is kind of talking on what you just said a minute ago there, Lutch.
John,
to be
what's
rational,
up, John?
Based on facts rather than emotions, and I remain unconvinced is a purely emotional response.
No, it's
irrational for someone who likes to define worded. You really worded. I think they meant to say words. You really dropped the ball on that one.
No. How is it an emotional thing for my brain to be convinced? Again, if it's an emotional thing, then you should be able to very easily adjust that. And so I would then ask you, if being convinced is just an emotion, then feel like you don't believe in God for real quick. Well, you can't, because that's not how that works. You are either convinced of something or you are not convinced of it. That is not an emotion.
Wait. So the thing he's kind of bringing into question, even if you didn't like the word emotion, let's swap emotion with chemical response, because it's the same thing under an atheist view. So being convinced of something, if that's just inputs and the output is, I believe this. If you believe that your beliefs are actually not have anything to do with your will, then they're strictly determined by mechanistic responses, input, output. I don't think you actually hold that, but you almost hold that. You're like kind of torn, it sounds like, between strict determinism. So you're torn between strict determinism.
I'm out here. I don't have no guidebook or anything. I'm just out here.
You do. I told you, bro. I know you don't have a guidebook, but like everything you're doing and all. Bro. Dude, but all the things you're asking and every way in which you're pursuing truth leads you to people like me who then go, please go over there, go to orthodoxy. And it's like, you might
just
fight
like the Christian said it, just like the Protestant said, just like everybody else said. And so we come back to everybody else is wrong, but I'm right. And so for me at this point to buy into that, I think that would be irrational.
Well, hold on. If something was true and it was narrowly true, wouldn't it follow that most things were not true?
Sure.
Okay, well there you go.
Why would I have a reason to believe that you have the right version versus everybody else who's promised me
you'd
have the right version?
You'd have to take a supernatural approach that your very willpower to pursue truth, your faith that even if there's an ambiguous God you don't know, if you have faith that your pursuit of truth is not a strictly empirical scientific one, but a spiritual one, do you believe that your pursuit of truth is a spiritual element, not just a empirical Gnostic sort of I'm going to gain folder knowledge?
Yeah.
Okay. So if that's the case, you could just kind of grant yourself that, maybe you're being guided to truth, and part of being guided to truth is finding things you reject. That's not a contradiction, right?
I didn't say it was a contradiction. I said it was reasonable. It was not irrational for me to say that, everybody else has said this before.
Yeah, you're in a colander, dude. It's awesome. When you go through the eye of the needle, you have to find a lot of things you have to say no to. I think that's the beauty of it all, actually, is that you have to say no and reject more things than you accept.
Fair enough.
We got $2 coming in from Landon. Agnostic atheism is an oxymoron.
So that's not what oxymoron means. But again, as I explained, don't believe. It's right there.
You don't know if you don't believe.
No, I don't know if there is a God, and I don't believe in any particular gods.
Wait, if atheism is basically a knowledge claim that I hold
No,
that there's
no. It's not. It's not a truth
Yes, it
claim.
is.
It's a Philip.
That's a truth claim. Like
Okay,
there are
no,
no
well-
gods. No, there are no
But
gods.
that's what I'm
You
saying.
would
That's
say-
that's not my position.
I understand.
That's
If
not
someone-
the version of atheism that I'm using.
Hold on. If someone says there are no gods, are they an atheist or an agnostic?
If they make the affirmative claim that there are no gods, then they
Okay.
are not agnostic. They are saying that they know.
Okay.
They know, so they would be
Okay.
agnostic.
Okay, hold on.
Atheist.
Hold on. If you're an agnostic atheist, you're saying you're agnostic about the affirmative, there are no gods.
Yeah.
So that's just agnostic. There's no point in putting the extra word on it, dude.
So then, which gods do I believe in?
Which gods do you not believe in or believe in?
No,
You
which
have to-
gods do I believe in?
If you're agnostic,
If I'm not an atheist, then it means I believe in a god. Which god do I believe in?
no. If you're
Yes,
not,
yes.
if you're
Yes.
no, you're agnostic.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. You're agnostic.
Yes. Correct. I am an
But you're not-
agnostic atheist.
No,
I
that's
know
the
you don't
same
like
thing.
these words,
Right.
but that's what they mean.
That doesn't
It's
make
not
any sense.
complicated. Without
No, it's-
knowledge of the
It's-
claim, does God
it's a-
exist? I don't know. Do you believe that God exists? No, I don't. Agnostic atheist. It's not complicated.
It's
I'm
redundant.
gonna have to look up this
Okay,
definition.
maybe it is
I've
redundant, but I'm
never-
just being specific enough to give you the understanding, which I guess I shouldn't have done because you used that
Okay,
against me and tried to
okay,
be like, well, that's not
wait,
real. Let's
wait,
go
wait,
back out the
wait,
only
wait, no,
version of atheism
no,
that
it's
I want
really-
to talk about.
Dude, it's really simple. If someone says, I'm certain I have a strong disbelief in God, they're atheist, right?
I'm sorry. Say it one more time, please.
If someone says there are no gods, positive claim,
Yes.
they're
Yes.
atheist, right?
Yes,
So how do you determine they're agnostic atheist?
they're not. They're by making the claim.
No. No, I'm not them. At what point does someone become an agnostic atheist if it's atheistic to say there is no God?
When you're not saying there is no God, you're saying I don't know if there is
That's
a
just
God. I am
agnosticism.
unconvinced. And again, I'm not disagreeing with you.
All right, but
But there's-
so sick.
I might be getting confused here too. $10. If it all fails, rage quit right now. Here's 10.
Bye, bitch.
We got KLW for $10. The issue, the Indian Jesus didn't know his real name, is conflating having to defend his own beliefs versus defending the actual position. Do you have anything for that? No.
Well, I mean, I would agree. I think that again, as I've said, that Jim Bob wants to argue the strong atheist when I very clearly laid out that that's not the only version. I made the comparison to conservative, that just because some conservatives suck off Donald Trump doesn't mean that that is an entailment of being conservative. And conservative has a lot more to it than atheist. So I agree with the last chat.
Okay. All right. $10. Moderator needs to hold the Indian to the debate prompt. I think they did just fine.
Figure it out.
Jim Bob definitely brought him back around.
Okay.
This guy believes. Brady Harvey for 20 says this guy believes rationality and knowledge comes from himself rather than revealed.
That's not true, but okay.
All right. $10 from KLW. Our desires are not necessarily the same thing as God's desires. That's the Christian standpoint, is that our desires need fixed. We don't know what is good. And thank you for that. $10 KLW. John Mondragon says, shit for drains. Shit for drains? All right.
That's an Indian joke.
You bathe in
$2.
feces, don't you know?
Yeah, I've seen some weird shit on X over there. And that like streamer who went there recently, that shit was weird. $2 from Box says rights are separate from God. Just ask Islam. Okay. $2 from Box as well says none of it means God exists.
Well, no, I would argue the opposite, Baux. If God is necessary, if he necessarily exists for truth to exist, then God exists. That's the counter to atheism, is like The challenge to you atheists, retards, is this. If you hold that truth exists, and from the assumption truth exists, you're determining God doesn't exist, you're holding to a view that truth absolutely exists in its absolute objective form. What we're saying is you don't actually have a standard for objective truth without God, and you're going, yeah, but just prove that he exists. Well, proof would assume mathematical truths that need to be grounded. You can't ground them. Or evidential truths, which is mostly the standard atheists go by. You have to assume a bunch of things don't exist on the same standard like I went through. Knowledge shouldn't exist from your worldview. Bactard. Truth itself, laws of logic, reasoning, universals, language, mathematics. None of these things exist from your worldview because you hold an evidentialist view.
He's inside your mind, and he knows what you think because of this magic word, atheist. Now he's inside your mind.
No, dude, it's a disjunct.
You're just projecting all this shit
No,
from
I'm
other
not.
leftists that on someone.
That's not an argument, bro.
The next one that
How's
comes
that
in
not
from
right?
Baux is atheists. I think they're saying the same thing you were just saying. It's crazy timing. Atheists are not leftists. It's not the same thing.
I agree. Nobody said leftist today at all. No, I never used the word
Yeah, but you
leftist
sure
at
act
all
like it.
today.
It's almost like
What?
the subtext is there. We're
Oh,
not
what?
that
The
much dumber than you, Jim Bob. We're not that much
Wait,
dumber than
Wait,
you.
what? When did I use the term leftist?
Maybe it's not. Again, maybe it's not subtext. Maybe you genuinely don't understand this.
When did
when
I
you-
use the word leftist?
You didn't, and that's the point. You were describing
shut
a
up.
lot of leftist behavior, and you kept just defining it
I'm-
or labeling it
Yeah,
as atheist.
leftist. No, I said leftist behavior and all of these denial of universals, I believe, and I could make the argument, is an entailment, a consequence of the denial of absolute truth. That is to say, Christianity holding to absolute truth will form a society that is reflective of this. When you move away from absolute truth, you start to believe you could bang a dude, and as long as he's wearing a wig, it's a woman. That's not peculiar to fucking Christianity.
Okay, it's peculiar to me, so
shit.
that means that it's not peculiar to atheism in general. It
Cool.
may not
Why
be
shouldn't
peculiar
atheists
to many
believe in
atheists.
nonsense?
Because
Cool.
they have- because of the other ideologies like
Why-
leftism that I'm
why-
fucking talking about. That's
Yeah,
the point.
Yeah,
That's
dude.
the point,
Why?
Jim Bob.
Dude,
That's the
dude,
point. That's
look.
hold on. That's the point. I know you didn't say leftist the whole time you were talking about
Why?
leftists. Yet
Look.
you're not.
Watch.
Hey,
Watch how easy this
whoa,
is.
hey, whoa,
This is
whoa.
so
Am I allowed
easy.
to finish the sentence?
There's nothing you're going to say that's
you were
going
crying the whole time about me interrupting you. Now you're going to do it to me?
finish up. I mean, I could just defeat this so
It
easily.
was 2 seconds.
Go on.
Slow your roll. Take it
Go on.
easy. I don't
So
remember what
crazy
fucking talking about.
leftism isn't an
so all
entailment
night
of
you-
atheism.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Cool.
it. That's
Cool.
it.
What
You
is the
agree?
what is the entailment? What is the cause of people denying universal truths then?
Many different things.
Like what? Give
Namely,
me one thing.
leftism, hedonism, entitlement.
No. Leftism is a symptom. What causes, if
I don't know
leftism
what
is a
causes that.
symptom, what causes leftists to deny universal truths?
It sounds like you're going towards the idea that you don't have God, so you have that spiritual hole, and I wouldn't even disagree with that. But there's not only Christianity or God to fill that hole.
Well, you're still saying atheism, if the hole is necessarily needs to be filled by something supernatural or bigger
I
than
didn't
humans.
say supernatural. I said
Well,
spiritual.
then what is it?
Spiritual.
Spiritual is non-atheistic, right? If spiritual, can an atheist be spiritual?
Is it not a cliche for people to be like, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual?
Can an atheist be spiritual?
Yes.
On what basis?
On feeling.
Give me an
What do you mean?
example. No, give me an example of how an atheist holding a non-God view could be spiritual. Tell me.
I think that when I spend time with my dog, that it is as he is nearing the end of his life. Hungry Dance. Let's get some super chats in. I feel my spirit is enriched by that.
Well, no. The term spirit needs a justification. What are you referring to by spirit?
The being
Is that
me.
supernatural? Is
No.
that supernatural?
No.
Spirit,
The collection that is me, whatever that is.
You're hearing it here, guys.
We have a consciousness, which I've admitted that we
Spirit
don't
isn't
understand.
supernatural.
Oh my God, bro! Stop!
Spirit-
Aren't you guys the spur? Don't spurg! And now you're spurging.
Spirit isn't supernatural. He said.
Jimmy Bobby, chill, brother. I am saying that yes, you can have a spiritual experiences, and when you talk to the spirit that is invoked in that word spiritual, then it can just mean the gestalt of who I am, and that would include my consciousness, which I don't believe is strictly material.
Great.
So there you go. No God
So
necessary for spirituality.
Why is it that, why is it mostly that Christians or in other theologies reject the notion that men could be women? Why do you think that is?
Because it's not true.
So it's not true. So what is the correlation between belief in God?
Can't be women.
So why is there a correlation between people who believe in God and absolute truth?
I reject the notion that it is absolute truth. That's begging the question. Is it absolute truth? I don't know.
Why is it?
If you can prove that it's absolute truth, then go for it.
Why is it absolutely truth that a man can be a woman?
Yeah.
Okay. If that's absolutely true, why is it that the belief of that is correlated with Christianity and less atheism?
Because it just happens to align more closely with the tenets of Christianity.
Okay.
And guess what? Again, atheism is not an ideology. Does not have any tenets.
Yes, it
does
is.
not have anything to it
It does
except
have
the answer to the
tenets.
question: do you believe in God?
No, belief, like I said in the beginning, if you think atheism is merely a non-belief in God or not
it is.
convincing of God, hold on. If that's the
Not everybody
case,
uses it.
isn't it also the case that you believe that beliefs exist?
Yeah.
So then it's not just a belief in God or non-God. It's a
But that
belief
is
in
not atheism. That's a different
Dude.
part of what my mind is. There's
No,
nothing
no.
about do you believe in beliefs
No.
that is in
No.
atheism. That's
Yes,
a
there
different
is.
line of thinking.
Dude,
This is
atheism.
what you guys continue to
No.
misunderstand.
No, dude, it's really
This is
simple.
exactly what Box was talking about.
Why-
You're talking about a different thing, and you're calling it
Why-
atheist, and you're
why-
getting confused.
Why does an atheist get to believe in beliefs?
I don't understand the question. What do you mean?
Why does an atheist, under their paradigm, the paradigm they're using to reject God's existence, why is it they hold that beliefs exist?
I heard what you said. I don't understand what you're getting at.
Tell me why and through what criterion an atheist can justify beliefs exist.
The fact that your mindset drives your actions. So if you believe that no cars are in the street, then you're going to be more likely to cross that street than if you believe that there's traffic.
No, that's assuming beliefs. I'm asking for why would an atheist under their status, under their epistemic system, why is it they would justify a belief at all as existing? You're just saying, well, no, they have beliefs. I know you think they have beliefs. I know they think they have beliefs.
Okay, well then
What
I
I'm
don't
asking
know why.
is,
because that
yeah, you don't know why. So is it
does that mean
rational?
that, so everything that I don't know is
No,
not true?
No, it's not about you not knowing. It's about them believing affirmative. I have a belief and a disbelief. That's not knowing. That's an assumption. Isn't it true that an atheist who says, I have a belief and I also have a disbelief, that's a knowledge claim. So what we're asking is a deeper question. We're asking, on what basis are you affirming your assumption that beliefs themselves are something that exists from their view? And that's a fair question. The answer is, you said it right.
Cartesian logic.
They
Cartesian
don't
logic.
know. No, logic is a tool that minds use. That's
right.
what's in
Well,
question.
but
minds.
that's where that you. I mean, I assume you know what I'm referring to with Cartesian. I think therefore I am. So like that is a
self-refuting.
What's self-refuting?
I think, therefore I am. Assumes.
I think, therefore, minds exist.
No, no. That's assume. Is it? Didn't we establish rationale is based on in accordance with reason and logic? Didn't we both agree to that? Yes.
That what is
being rational is based on or in accordance with reason or logic, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Descartes, I think, therefore I am, has the conclusion in the premise, in the first premise.
Same.
Do you know what that's called in logic?
What could you explain that?
If you say I think, therefore I exist, you're assuming the I in the first premise. That's
but
called
you're not
begging the question. Yes, it is.
Okay, so how could there be a thinker without or how could there be a thought without a thinker?
Correct. Yeah, that's called begging the question. That's circular reasoning. You have the I that you're trying to prove in the first premise. I think, therefore I exist. No, I think is in the first premise, dude.
Okay. All right. I'm
Yeah, move away from Descartes, dude. It's bad for your mind.
fair enough.
$5.
Like I said, I definitely am not going to beat
You got to
Jimbob
come to
on
the right side. You're gonna come to the right side. You're getting closer. All right.
There you go. Shout out to Element Music.
Sim for $5 says, Jim Bob, you have to do the Tucker Carlson laugh when he spurgs out again.
I don't even know what he's saying.
That was actually like spot on. Holy shit. Shit. Yeah,
Not
Jim
bad,
Bob
not
kills
bad.
it with the impersonations, just in case anyone didn't know. $5 from Daniel comes in, says we should rename Indian Jesus to Black Jesus because he clearly he can't swim, he's drowning.
At least he
Thank
stepped
you,
up,
Daniel.
though. At least he stepped up, and we had a good back and forth, and he didn't like lose it, right?
Right. Facts. Dan
Did you just say
Snyder
I didn't lose
says,
the debate?
No,
well,
you
you didn't lose your
I'm
mind.
kidding.
Dan Snyder for $5 says, I had to buy a new power chicken plucker, but I can afford to let you oppress me into a super chat. Thank you,
Nice.
Dan.
Chicken plucker.
Dane, thank you. Definitely not whatever says, I don't know where life a world comes from isn't rational. With a question.
What?
Mark.
That's irrational. That's like a red herring. We're not talking about where life comes from. Saying you don't know where the world comes from is not what was in question. The question is whether or not the assumption that God doesn't exist, whether it's a 10 out of 10 affirmative or like, what's your name? Clutch?
Yeah, it's Lutch without the C.
Lutch. Lutch is more softer on the atheist position. He's like, well, maybe God exists, right? Maybe there's reason to believe in God. The question of where the world comes from is relevant to, we can get into that, but we're actually granting that the world exists the way it does. And I would argue even the world as it is, the way it exists, even if you said God, we don't know if God created the way it is, even the world the way it is, the atheist uses induction to come to their conclusions, but they can't justify that the world is regular. They just assume it is. This is the problem of induction.
To be fair, though, I think that let's address that then. So if someone were to say, I don't know where life, we'll just say, I don't know where life comes from. Is that rational?
Yes. To say, I don't know where life comes from is just like a position on how life emerged or whatever they're going to think about it. Yeah, that's rational to say, I don't know. But when you get to higher level things like metaphysics, you're asking a question, deeper questions about like, to say, I don't know how it is the case, a turtle grows from conception, right? You don't know. You just don't have the information. That's assuming that turtles exist and they're universal and they're not zebras, and that the way in which they exist has a proper unfolding to them, right? The question of how it is we even have these things is a deeper question. You know what I mean? So if you grant yourself the regularity of nature in the way the world is, you can go, I don't know how this works. I don't know. That's totally rational. But we're asking a different question than this. We're not just talking about, do I know how rockets work? We're asking, can I justify that knowledge is even possible? That's a way different question than I don't know where the world comes from. Way bigger question. Because you're assuming, again, mind. What is that? When you say, I don't know where life comes from, you're assuming there's an I.
Why is that an issue? Why is that an issue for
because it's ad hoc. Because otherwise it's ad hoc. You grant yourself an I, right?
Yeah, but what? So, like,
That's
talking like
ad
why
hoc.
is that? What is the
Because
logical issue with that?
It's ad hoc. That's a fallacy.
I don't remember exactly what that means.
Ad hoc means you're just conveniently granting yourself something without justification.
Sounds a lot like Christianity.
That's not a counter. How does that sound like Christianity?
Because it's confirmation bias of this must have happened, so let's make all.
I didn't say ad hoc is confirmation bias. I said ad hoc is it just is.
I said that what you're explaining sounds to me like confirmation bias that exists in Christianity.
No. If you grant ad hoc, if you say logic just is or the world just is, that's an ad hoc position. That just is. It doesn't sound like Christianity. Christianity actually does the opposite. We actually refuted and fought against the Enlightenment thinkers who fucking wrecked philosophy because they said, guys, can we just hold up on asking for justification for a priori stuff? Can we just accept a priori stuff? Can we just accept minds and logic? Can we accept Descartes and all these fags? Let's just accept what they think instead of going, no. The proper way to reason is to say, what justifies these things? Not let's just grant each other the things and do a circle jerk. No, that's not how it works. You have to be rigorous. Christianity is the opposite of this circle jerk. Christianity is rigorous. It says, no, we need a justification for logic. That's proper thinking.
So then how do you fold the Skittles churches into that?
What?
This, like the LGBT.
They're not churches. They're event centers.
I mean,
they need to be bulldozed, bro.
Fair. I mean, I don't disagree on both counts.
Bulldozer.
Fair enough. But what would be the? And I mean, we don't have. It doesn't have to be a whole thing. But just what would be the argument that they are not a church?
Oh, you do the church, a church. You could say a church colloquially and be like, oh, they're a lowercase church. We're not talking about that. If they say they're Christian, hold on. If they say they're the Christian church, we would attack them on multiple prongs. We would attack them on metaphysics. We would attack them on Christology. We would attack them on soteriology, ecclesiology, historical things. Can they track back to the apostles? Can they track back to the early liturgies that existed from 138 AD and onward that had been preserved? Do they have a normative authority for hermeneutics and practice? We would ask all of these questions. And by the way, we do it quite well online because a lot of these fake churches, these reformed churches, these heterodox churches, they can't answer these questions. Why? Christianity isn't just a claim about the church exists and I believe in a church or I believe in God or whatever. Christianity from the Orthodox position is an entire worldview. And you got a taste of a worldview account of like, well, how does a worldview get attacked? Right. And I think you're going to be good at it, dude. I think you're going to be good at it once you graduate to worldview attacks, not just particulars, worldview, the whole thing. So when you get introduced to a new worldview, simulation theory, this or that, you should attack and practice attacking the entirety of the worldview. That is to say, ethics, metaphysics, epistemology, whatever else they're claiming, morality, which was tied to ethics. You have to attack all of it at once. So why not the Skittles Church? Because they have no justification for the thing they call Christianity because they have to reject 2,000 years of holy tradition.
Fair enough. I mean, I definitely agree that we're in a position of the church and Christianity itself being watered down, and I ain't mad about it, unless we're in the political realm, because then we get a bunch of leftists.
Well, I'm going to send you to divine liturgy. Your life's going to be changed, and you're going to be like, I can't believe I've been away from this for so long, and it's going to be.
Can't wait. I was just talking last night about how I wish I had God back.
Go, man. Go. Just go.
XB comes in for 5, says, so it took 30 minutes for us to get to the point where atheism is so indefensible logically, we had to change the debate topic.
We didn't change the debate tactic. We just decided to only remember Jim Bob's little corner of no, only atheist means what I want it to mean, not what it actually means, and what you're actually representing here is just
to be fair, I think
it's a pretty good impression.
I think atheism does have a pretty strict definition, but I'm gonna have to look more into anybody calling it agnostic atheism because I don't think I've ever heard that before. RC really? Toy Drive is a reet hard. That is all. All right, thanks, Alexander. $5 comes in from Dane. Says the Vedic Jesus said, "When I was young, I bet I'm wearing underwear right now older than him."
How old do you think I'm
These words are so I get all 150 characters worth. Shut up.
My birthday is on Friday. How old y'all think I'm going to be?
41.
Numbers in the chat.
How close was it? Oh, you're
I want
waiting
to
for
see what
more
the chat
guesses.
says.
Okay. Verna Desire for $10 says, not being able to say God doesn't exist already means God is logically possible and a necessary being, if possible, has to exist following a modal ontological argument.
Yeah, I never said that God wasn't logically possible. I just don't. It absolutely is possible. I just
I
don't believe
think I think what he's saying, like if you're saying if you can't say God exists, or if you can't say God doesn't exist, that already means that because God is logically possible and a necessary being, if possible, has to exist.
I would add to that what's probable also assumes some absoluteness to probability in mathematics. And that's why you go tag. You actually go outside of the paradigm. You don't grant people probability. You actually have to go, okay, if you think probability exists, then you think invariant mathematical laws exist. And they go, yeah, I do. And we go, well, if we're arguing for God, what we're saying is what other than God could ground mathematical truths such that probability is even possible? I would argue an atheist, whether you're a 10 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10, they actually don't even have a grounding foundation for stochastics, which is probability. They don't even have it, right? They don't have an absolute standard for what's possible and impossible because it's all inductive and likelihood. They just grant themselves induction. I don't grant them induction.
Fair enough.
Bree comes in for 10, says atheists say they've transcended faith, but somehow have unshakable belief in their own hot takes. And thank you for that, Bree. We got Box coming in again for $5, says God clearly creates people who fundamentally cannot believe in him. Weird. It's not irrational.
No, that's impossible. God creates people who have the capacity to reject him. That's not believing. You know why? You can't reject something you don't have an account for, like you don't have a conception of.
But that doesn't apply to me, though, because I did have a conception of what God is, and I believe in that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, it doesn't apply to you. So no, that's the point.
But,
is that,
right. So then
hold on. Dude, hold on. He's actually asking me the question. God clearly creates people who fundamentally cannot. Hold on. No, that's false, Box. It's not that fundamentally can't. They're not deterministically. We're not Calvinists. Calvinists, Box, you would actually have a good point. In fact, you should actually save that Box for $5 for Calvinists. You can destroy Calvinists with that, but not orthodoxy. No. Fundamentally, possibly reject, possibly not believe is not the same as they can't. They can't deterministically. They can't believe. That's not true. That's just assumption that you can't ground.
All right.
I'm right here, but I'm gonna take a piss.
Oh, okay. John Mondragon for $5 says Calete, Maryland.
I do believe in Maryland, so I mean,
she says she's God.
Yeah.
Do you agree with her?
Do with that what you will.
Do you agree with her, or you refute her?
Yeah, no. I mean, hey, she told me she's God, so.
He believes it because he heard it. You heard it here, folks. Darth Grumpy Dad says for $5, unless conservatives are conserving Christian values, they will have no grounding to conserve anything. It will fall to liberal ideas.
Yep. That's why you need these secular conservatives.
That doesn't make any sense, dude. That's literally why. That's literally what he just said. Is that conservatives who don't abide by a strict Christian ethic, they actually fall to secularism, and you're like, that's why we need secular conservatives.
No, I'm saying the having conserving Christian values outside of the context of you have to believe this thing. If secular people can buy into that, then they will not fall into liberal ideas because they will fall into Christian ethics. Which is exactly my point and the purpose of the Indian Jesus.
So you're saying we got to convert them all to Christianity? I got you.
But just not believing it, just acting like it's true.
Would that be better or worse for society?
Well,
if
is it
all
rational?
leftists acted like Christians, even though they didn't believe, would that be better or worse for society?
Listen to this. It would be better, but listen to this.
Bingo. Exactly.
Hold on, Jordan
You
Peterson
just
right now.
hold on, dude. You just conceded the debate because if it's the case that it's rational to follow something that's not true, then
It's
you
true.
agree. Well, no.
The ethics,
dude.
ethics leading to a positive society is true. The truth claim, I don't know.
No,
Maybe it is true.
No, it's not. It's actually, from your view, it's a preference. It's not true. It's just that someone like Pine Creek Doug, he's a secularist who prefers Christian ethics and prefers to live around white Christian people specifically.
Yeah, so do you.
Yeah, I do.
I don't know about
but there's a
right,
reason.
But preference is. It's different.
No, dude. What you don't understand, I'm internally critiquing you. We're not talking about whether or not it's true or not. We're talking about, from your view, it's rational to follow things that aren't true.
Like what?
Like Christianity.
We got $5 in from $5 comes in from Box. Props, Voodoo Ranger Juice Force IPA. I'm on Bob's level 9.5. It's great. The orange can.
It's hard, dude. I'm trying to.
Are they paying you? You free advertising right now?
No, I don't. Box. I don't know if I can continue with it, but I don't know if I can do it.
It's a strong one, eh?
It is.
Box comes in again for $2. Box is putting in the work. All right.
Nice Box.
I like the teamwork more than the division.
Nice
USA. I like it.
USA.
I like it. $10 comes in from Bree. Says, please don't break my legs. Here's your taxes. You gotta pay the Don. Marilyn comes in. Says, ask Indian Jesus if he believes in me. Well, he answered your question just a minute ago. He does believe in you, Marilyn. Brad Harvey for $5. Jim Bob is literally explaining his view. He is agnostic to the immaterial and has an empirical epistemic system.
Right. It's inconsistent.
Yeah. That was what he was explaining earlier. Yeah. Boxed for $2 says life is just the best RPG ever made. Thanks for that, Box. Lemuel says, if you brush your teeth thinking it will make it rain, and it just happens to be a healthy practice, doesn't make trying to make it rain healthy. Similarly, being rational doesn't make atheism rational.
Yeah, I agree with that. But that doesn't... I disagree that it's not rational. It doesn't make it rational because you can be an atheist and you can be rational. It's rational because it's rational.
All right.
I'm saying it's not rational because atheism can't justify rationality itself. So how can a worldview be rational?
So, but even from your worldview, then it doesn't matter if I can justify that. From your worldview, being unconvinced of a certain claim is not
no,
irrational.
it's not a certain.
So
dude,
you're saying that I don't have the justification to say this, but you're not actually batting down what I'm saying.
Dude, do you understand the difference between a particular claim and the grand scale of what we determine rationality itself is?
Yeah, I mean, yes, those are different things. I don't know.
Yeah, they're different. So you didn't respond to what I'm saying. You responded in granting yourself particular claims. I'm not talking about particular claims. I'm talking about the justification for rationality itself, reason and logic. Atheism can't justify reason and logic. So to say atheism is rational when atheism itself, whatever scale, 10 out of 10, 2 out of 10, it doesn't matter. Without God, without God, you can't ground or justify reason and logic. So how could you say atheism is reasonable or logical if the worldview itself, the denial of God, puts you in a position where you can't justify reason and logic? How could you possibly say it's rational?
Again, I reject the notion that being in that position I reject the notion that a God is necessary for that. You keep smuggling that in as if
Tell me an alternative. It's called a disjunctive syllogism. Give me an alternative then.
Again, I don't know.
Like I said, because you can't.
Like I said, I haven't done a deep dive on this stuff in 15 years, and I was thinking maybe I'll try, but you clearly know this stuff better than I do. But that doesn't mean.
So then say I don't know if I could actually find a counterposition that can ground and justify.
I just did say that. I literally just said that. I said I don't know.
Well, then don't say there is another view, right? You don't know if there's another view.
just oh my God.
Is there another view, a godless view that can ground the ground reason and logic? Is there
I
a
don't
view?
know. My
Okay.
not knowing doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
That's true. But if you're
There
going
we
to say
go.
it doesn't,
So we're kind of stuck because I'm ignorant to what those things are.
That's just a naive approach. Now, if it is the case, right, as you pursue the truth, if it's the case that no other view can do it, well, then you find it irrational to behold an atheist view.
I don't know what an atheist view means.
It means that a non-God view of reality, but while you're holding reason and logic as real things that you're using. I'm saying there's a discordance with that. You cannot hold that reason and logic are a thing from a view that can't justify that they're a thing.
Why not? If we can see that, the logical processes lead to material differences, like the fact that we can be in different states and be talking right now, that is a in the same way we were talking about rights and force.
No,
that this is a proof that the ideas.
No, I'll tell you how. I'll use an analogy. If we both use a hammer to build a house, you're appealing to utility use of the thing. Justification is not whether or not you can use it. I agree. Atheists can use the thing called logic. I'm not arguing that. I'm saying if I use a hammer, the use of the hammer doesn't tell me how I got the hammer, right?
Right.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. So swap hammer with logic. Your use of logic, I don't remove your ability to use logic. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not going to say you can't reason.
Thanks.
I'm going to say you can. Right. I'm not going to say that. That's a bad argument. What I'm saying is about the justification. So if you use the analogy of the hammer, just having the hammer doesn't tell me how it is I have the hammer. It's just that I can use the hammer. Great. We're asking a bigger question. How is it you have the hammer?
And so if somebody said, I don't know, I just, I don't know, it just fell from the sky. Like,
you can try to say that. Yeah. But falling from, when we're talking about the laws of logic, hold on. When we're talking about the laws of logic, if you say something fell from the sky, you're already presupposing a world that has identity. So that's the thing in question. Falling from the sky means the sky already existed. So did the land. So did the world. So did us. So did rocks. So did everything. Okay. The thing in question is the laws of logic themselves.
Right. But what I'm asking why that matters to the use of the hammer if you don't know where it came from.
Because
why does that matter at all?
We're using the hammer to swap out with rationality, right? So if the atheist says, I have a hammer, I can use a hammer. And the Christian goes, yeah, you can use a hammer. Now, you can't tell me if using the hammer is rational, though, if you can't tell me how you got the hammer.
So if you have, so I just want to make sure I'm clear here. So we have an atheist, let's say is 50 years old and goes into the garage and there's a hammer there. And they don't remember how they acquired that hammer. Then they're what is like? I
they have no
you're going to say
they're going to say I
use the hammer.
Yeah, use.
Okay, and so what is lacking there?
What's lacking is the best an atheist can come up with for these transcendental categories is pragmatism. That's it. That's all you guys have.
Okay, but again, the question. So we're using the hammer as as an analogy for a god.
Yes.
So I'm
no. Sorry. So no, not God. The laws of logic. Yeah.
Logic. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the purpose of a hammer, or the utility of a hammer, is to hammer stuff, and you're bringing up how that person got the hammer, and I'm asking you, why is that relevant? Because the 50-year-old guy who doesn't remember where the hammer came from in his garage.
I told you it's relevant because in order to say the denial of the hammer maker is a rational position, I'm saying it's irrational to say the hammer doesn't need any sort of justification for existing. I just get to use it without a justification. The question of atheism specifically is the question of, does God exist? Whether it's a strong 10 out of 10, God doesn't exist, or you like a 5 or a 4F, maybe a 2 after this debate. If you hold, well, maybe God exists. What I'm pointing to is that if you hold the position God doesn't exist, full 10 out of 10, then you're using a hammer and you're basically not investigating how you got the hammer. And I'm saying it's irrational to grant yourself a hammer, especially in this case, by the way, the hammer, you'll agree, is actually an immaterial thing.
Okay, but
it's not even just a hammer. You know, it's like it's immaterial, dude. That's even crazier. That's like immaterial.
So I get that. So maybe you can tell me that, you know, your analogy is good but not perfect, and that's why I'm misunderstanding. But I still don't get what the if we have a hammer and we have a nail that needs to be hammered.
You can't tell me what's rational. That's the point. You can't tell me why and for what purpose and what grounds the use.
Why do I need
hammer.
to tell you the purpose of how I got the hammer in order to use the hammer?
Because in this case, if rationality is the analogy, right? How can you say something's rational if you don't even know what the tool is?
I do know what the tool is.
No, you don't.
I just don't know where it came from.
No. You actually don't know what it is, actually. It's a bigger question.
How so?
Watch. I'll ask you. From an atheistic view, whether it's pure naturalism or in your case, like sort of like pseudo, there's a spiritualism to your reality. Either way, the question of what is rationality or what is the laws of logic, like the same way I say, what's an apple? We went over this. An apple is a physical fruit. You can point to it. It's a universal category of fruit. I agree. There's a materiality to an apple. But when you say the laws of logic exist, and if we're using the hammer, you actually don't know in what way the hammer exists. I'm actually granting too much by using the analogy of the hammer. In this case, laws of logic, the 3 classical laws.
Okay, so yeah, fair. So that I'm saying that maybe that doesn't fit, and why I'm not understanding.
Sure.
So
well,
I'm stuck on the point of with the hammer analogy that you're acting as if knowing where the hammer came from is relevant.
You don't even know what it is. No, it's worse. I'm saying
you know it's a hammer.
No, you don't, because
why not?
Because under an atheistic view, you can't tell me. You don't know what rationality is. What is it?
Rationality, as we defined earlier, is the ideas in accordance with reality.
No. I'm not talking about the definition. I'm saying if rationality exists ontologically, does it exist?
Yes.
What is it? I'm not talking about a definition. I'm saying, does it have its own
process of it is
process?
Exactly. It is a
process. You call yourself good for you. Good for you, dude. Good for you. Look, I'm saying,
he's learning.
This is great.
All right.
He caught himself. He said he knew. Good on you, dude. You knew if you said process, you're going to lead into determinism, didn't you? Just be honest. It's not
it's just not. I'm thinking about what I think about logic. Yeah, I'm just telling you what I think. So I said process. Not so much a process.
Okay.
And because we've went like 30 minutes over the Q&A time, I'm just gonna do the questions now. I'm just gonna highlight the questions. But thank you to all the super chats that's come in. But we still got quite a bit, and we went over time quite a bit here. So one here is David Atlas for $5 says, is there a justified true disbelief?
It's interesting.
True disbelief? I mean, yeah, like I would. So like something that you don't believe in, that's true, that it's not exists. So like my second dog, I don't have a second. I don't have a second dog. That's a justified true disbelief. Or would you say then that because I'm affirming it that it's not a disbelief? I don't know.
Because like justified true belief is usually the term for knowledge, right? So it's like he's asking like an inverse question. I think the best way to approach that is like, if you were to grant justified true disbelief, you're still pointing to the privation of something like positive. And so you're going like, well, I understand unicorns are a conceptual thing that exists in some form, but my denial that unicorns exist, maybe you could categorize as a disbelief in them. It's justified to disbelieve, but because you know what they are. Like, so it's like a weird paradox, because to disbelieve in the thing is to have a concept of what it is, right?
What about a square circle? Would that fit what we're talking about here, or is that a different thing?
Yeah, similarly, like definitionally, it would violate the law of identity.
Right. But then I think
a unicorn doesn't, though.
No, but I think to parrot what you were saying then in the square circle, we're then affirming that it doesn't believe that doesn't exist, and so that's a justified true belief.
Yeah, like conceptually, it's like what we're actually saying is that something that fundamentally violates the laws of logic and mathematics, you don't have any positive ontology of what that is because it's incoherent. It's like actually incoherent. It doesn't make sense. It's like saying like a brown, well, that could even be argued a brownish red or whatever. But you know what I mean? Like it's like total like opposites definitionally. So do we
A married bachelor?
disbelieve? Yeah. We just definitionally it's like the difference between analytics and synthetic truths is that we're definitionally saying, well, it doesn't exist. A one is not a two. There's no 1-2s, you know. But even that question, David Atlas would bring up a bigger question, which is like if square circles can exist, then we're still arguing that there are absolute universal truths about identities. And that's a bigger question that wasn't totally brought up in this debate. And something I press atheists on a lot, which is like they assume a bunch of invariant universal identities of things and they have no justification. They just use them like the hammer. So
this question here, it's a little bit off topic, but kind of what you just talked about from Definitely Not Whatever Again says, does the Holy Trinity defy law of identity?
No, I would say it sits above the materiality that we live in. Like, for instance, like this is an object and this is an object, and they're two distinct objects, but this is temporality. So in the sense that the Trinity couldn't be confined by one or many things, that God as a Trinity would be the only iteration outside of all categories that would transcend the dialectic or the dichotomy between one or many. It would be unity and multiplicity all bound in one. So it would transcend. I wouldn't say it would deny or violate. I would say it would be supralogical, supra-rational. It would be something that in its very essence, God would transcend even our understanding of being itself, because we are in temporality. We make sense of the world in objects, particulars, sets, categories, particulars, sets of particulars that become new categories, and so on. Well, what we're saying is the Trinity necessarily, God would transcend being captured by one or many. So you couldn't make sense of it. You can't use water, ice, vapor. Like that's just a soft analogy. You couldn't actually use that. So to answer your question, no, it doesn't defy the law of identity. It defies the temporality that we use the law of identity in.
All right. Blake Athees for $20. I know you've kind of answered this a couple times, but he's saying it in the most simplest term. Agnostic means I don't know. Atheist means there is not. How are those not contradictory?
So again, if you are a strong atheist that has the positive belief that God does not exist, then you are not agnostic. So agnostic only applies to the softer versions where it's I don't know, but I don't believe. I don't know, and I'm not convinced. That there's no contradiction in not knowing something and also being aware of the proposition and not being convinced either way.
How do you know when someone goes from a hard atheist position to a flaccid atheist?
I guess when you start doing debates with Christians.
Maybe.
Okay. We got Richie Torres says, question, given your atheistic presuppositions about reality, how do you justify the preconditions for even being able to debate?
Yeah. Yep.
How about reality justify the preconditions for even being able to debate? I would. So again, like what presuppositions are you talking about?
Laws of logic, reasoning that you have a mind, your mind's distinct from my mind. There's an external world. That's a metaphysical claim. The regularity of nature, the past is like the present is like the future.
Okay. So why
universals, mathematics, science?
Okay, gotcha. So why then would I need a like the presuppositions exist, but that doesn't mean that A, that they're wrong, B, that they don't comport with reality, and I don't really understand what you're saying, that you're smuggling in assumptions. I mean, yeah, we're
Can you
all
justify it?
doing that.
No. Can you justify the assumptions that all of the things I mentioned from an atheistic view? Can you justify the whole slew of assumptions I listed?
To a certain extent, yes.
How?
I mean, it depends on what it is. What would you like me to?
I just
justify?
said information, laws of logic, reasoning, the fact that you think you have a mind and I have a mind.
Again, the fact that, so we'll take the laws of logic. The fact that the laws of logic work and lead us.
That's a hammer argument again, dude.
Then I guess I don't. I guess I don't. I'm just hammering and building shit, and I don't know how or why. Right. But
that's right.
Built.
That's why I'm gonna pull you into orthodoxy, bro, and it's gonna be beautiful.
I like it. Next question we got here is where I just scrolled down. Whoops. Where did it just go? Damn it. Oh, here we go. JimBob, what if I argued that it was necessary for me to take non-Christian actions to achieve Christian outcomes, like using deception, etc.? Is that moral?
No, I would say that's not moral. That would be just a violation of the identity of being Christian. So that's part of the what's often, especially now, considered the weakness of Christianity, is that we actually hold to virtues and morals, and we're always up against the world, and the world is filled with people who don't care. They'll just get by any means possible, right? So no, the Christian perspective is certainly not by any means possible. And there are some moments, and even if they're blurry, at which point you do fight. Now, do you violate Christian ethics to fight? No. Do you ultimately know every single action is going to be moral when you do it? No. But you certainly don't go, hey, if we want X, we should slaughter all the atheists. Like, that wouldn't be a Christian perspective. We would reject that.
I don't know if all the Christians would agree with you, but dilly dilly to that.
All what Christians, though? I mean, I don't agree with all people who say they're Christians. So, like, that's kind of bringing up like
that's a y'all problem.
It's a good problem to have.
It might be your problem soon too. Okay. But that's okay. So that's all I see there for like actual questions in the super chats. Like I said, we went like 30 minutes over the 30 minutes. So
My bad.
didn't want to. Oh no, don't worry. It's a. I mean, you guys were up for it, so it's all good. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna wrap up the Q&A portion. All right. First off, shout out to everybody who sent in super chats and engaged with the debate, and the support helps keep the show going, helps me keep bringing you guys debates just like this one. All right. And also huge shout out to both debaters. Again, if you agreed or disagreed, it takes more than you guys know to come up here, battle your ideas in front of the live audience. So make sure you go show them both support. You can find them both in the description. And now what we're going to do is we're going to roll out the outro video. It'll take about like 3 minutes, gives time to go take a piss. I really got to piss. So take time, go take a piss, get a drink, whatever you got to do. And then during the outro, I'll drop the StreamYard link for anybody who wants to come join the open panel call-in.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you find a rewind forward? He says you missed his chat.
Oh,
rewind forward. Rewind FWD.
Right here. Yeah. When Indian Jesus finds the humility to accept agnostic atheist is illogical, he'll understand the truth of orthodoxy.
All right.
Based.
You say so.
I think Indian Jesus is like, damn, I just had a conversation like this with Speakeasy not long ago.
Well, and I do want to say, I'm not doing any more religious debates for a while. I think the political side of it is much more important and much more relevant. Not saying I wouldn't, but yeah, if anybody's got more political stuff, I think that is more relevant than this. This stuff is fun, but
I'm saying Indian Jesus. I'm saying that doing political debates without a grounding foundation for why you should do political debates and change culture. Dude, we're trying to offer you a good grounding for how, for arguing that, So if you like both of the two, you should do both.
Okay, well, I mean, fair enough, but then we got to stop. If you want atheists in general to be, what's going on in the Crucible? What's going on with orthodoxy? Then, he's fucking atheist. That's
it's like what I said to you the one day about like the one thing I see the separation with the left and the right is like the people on the right are people who have like an inherent value for human life, and the people on the left aren't, and that's like a big separation between them. Yeah, so as I was saying, I'm gonna roll the outro video. It'll go like 3 minutes so we can all take a piss, get our drinks, all of that. I'll drop the StreamYard link for anybody who wants to come in and challenge anything they've heard. And again, thank you all for watching the Swords of Reason. If you've liked what you've seen, make sure you sub up, hit the like, so that again, I can continue bringing you guys these kick-ass debates. And we'll see you all in a few minutes.
Step into the circle where the echoes collide. Truth through the static, no place to hide. Iron tongues, sharpen fire in our breath. We dance with conviction on the edge of death. Your words are bullets, mine are storms. Ideas forged where lightning forms. No retreat, no treason. We clash our swords of reason. Cut through lies with steel precision. No faith, no fear, just raw collision. We clash our swords of reason. Facts burn brighter than a prophet's flame. Egos crumble, but the truth remains.